Sutton Conservation Commission, July 17, 2019. First up is 352 Manjog Road.
Make a motion to waive the reading of 352 Manjog Road.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Dan Hazen. I'm with Gary and Halman, representing Manchester Realty Trust.
Thank you.
Dan Hazen. I'm with Gary and Halman. So right now, we went to ZBA last Thursday. They scheduled a site walk for yesterday, and we were continued out to August 1st. We went to planning board on Monday, and we have a few revisions through the planning board. They continue us out to their next meeting, August 5th. And we did get a review letter back from Graves Engineering. They are substantially happy with the stormwater, and also with the drainage calculations, and also with the stormwater report. I have a few minor revisions to make within that are basically typos and a couple of things to make the HydroCAD model match what is written on the plan. So I'll be getting those back to them. I just wanted to wait for getting all planning board's comments last night, or Monday night, and ZBA's comments. Since our last meeting, I did increase the height of the fence around the dumpster to 8 feet. And I also tied the roof drains.
Hold on one second.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize what project this was. I have to recuse myself. I had talked
Yeah,
about. I recused
Mike
myself
McGovern's
from the
gonna
last
recuse
one.
himself.
Thank you.
Maybe the abutters would like a copy of this?
Oh,
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you.
So since the last meeting, I did raise the height of the fence around the dumpster to 8 feet from 6 feet. And I also tied the roof drains into the drainage system to be infiltrated rather than to flow overland off the site.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, the first page is the existing conditions,
Okay.
the second page is
Gotcha.
the proposed conditions.
Right.
I'm not sure.
Do you have a DEP number yet?
Yes, we just got that today.
Do you know what it is?
0899, drainage.
303-0899. Okay.
Oh, it goes 3 times.
You don't have any Board of Health issue with this. This is on sewer, right?
This will be sewer, correct.
Nothing with ZBA?
Yeah.
ZBA, we are going for a special permit for the 3 apartments.
Okay, so it's
we'll-
pending?
Yeah, that's pending,
Yeah.
and we should be hearing,
Yeah.
like I said, we had the meeting on last Thursday. They seemed receptive to it, and
Okay.
we will be, they had a site walk last night, and we will be going back to them 1st of August.
All right.
So basically, we're, other than some of the revisions that planning board had were, they wanted some markings on to delineate that it's a one-way around, some signage. The scope of the project's not changing, the footprint of it's not changing, drainage patterns, nothing that, within the riverfront area, we are gonna be increasing the landscaping around the building. We're gonna be doing a landscape plan as part of planning board's recommendations or requests. So, it's minor.
I'm just gonna have you wait one second, ma'am. I'm just gonna ask our consultant, and then the board's, your question may get answered. It may not, but, all right. Brandon?
I was just talking to Mr. Hazen as we were waiting for the public hearing to start. And I remember last time we were talking about fencing next to the wetland. We've learned hindsight 2020 based on Pleasant Valley Crossing that a lot of garbage from these commercial properties can go flying into the wetlands and
It is bad,
other
yeah.
people's properties. Mr. Hazen said he did put a fence around the dumpster, but I think it should probably be more extensive than that, but only on the side where the wetlands are, yeah, like around, somewhere around that area, maybe around the bend there where the jurisdictional area is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to your right as well. Yeah, like down to that first bend. See the yellow line where the jurisdictional, right. Beyond that, it's out of jurisdiction, but it's that, yeah, that, like you, that is the most concern, and I just recommend doing that as something that the commission has learned in the past. And that's a minor tweak. I already talked to Mr. Hazen, he says it could be something that could be easily put on. I forget, how high was the fence at, Pleasant Valley Crossing? Was it,
I wanna say that it's 6, and then it goes to the dumpster, and it goes up another couple feet, so I wanna say it's 8 feet.
at the dumpster, it's 8 feet?
Just at the dumpster.
How high is the fence at the dumpster?
8 feet.
So can you do 6-foot fencing in the other locations?
You should be able to do
Yes, something to just stop.
it. Stockade.
Your dealer's choice, really.
Yeah, they use chain link on that project, and it catches some of the plastic bags, but there's still a tremendous amount down there.
Yeah, I'm not anticipating this being as busy as that place, but we'll add the 6-foot fence.
Other than that, I think the project complies with the bylaw on 310 CMR 10, provided, it sounds like Graves is just about done with their stormwater review, it's just minor technicalities at this point.
Correct, there's no major changes.
I prefer the planning board final revision to be as close to the conservation final revision date, like they line up as much as possible. So I don't know if you're gonna wanna continue, so planning board can, or you can finish your, whatever you need for planning board, or what can be worked out, so I'll leave that to you. It's best to have the plans be as close to, as possible, so everybody's on the same page. Thank you.
Joyce, any comments?
I just agree with that we wanna make sure that we don't close the public hearing if another issue comes up.
Bill?
That would make sense.
Zach?
I think, I agree with Brandon that we should wait to close the public hearing until, the planning board finishes everything on their end too.
Nicole? Anybody from the audience?
Well,
I just need you to state your name and address, please.
Rebecca Lepetier, 356 Manchog Road, abutter,
Could you please spell your last name for us?
Lecouteur.
Thank you.
Our issue is the drainage. We have been washed out. We have a granite building with granite walling around it. And it's to the point where it's washed out the wall. And we've gone to George and asked him to please address the issue. And also to address the trees that are broken and they're hanging. And we cannot use half of our parking lot up top because of it. And these are definitely our issues, and I'm looking at the drainage, and it's not changing as I see it. Am I correct?
The drainage,
Can I show you a picture?
Could you do me a favor and point out on that map which property is yours?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where you are.
We are right here,
In the front.
and the issue is the drainage comes straight down where the cars are right there.
It's washed out our hill.
It's washed out our hill, it's washed out granite block buildings.
Is it the stormwater? Thank you.
We have broken trees above us that we cannot use our parking lot. It's a hazard.
We moved about 4 years ago.
Okay. And how long has that drainage issue been going on?
We have been after George for 2 years. You can check with
Actually,
Jen.
it's about 3 years now.
3 years now. So, we'd like to see our neighbor be a good neighbor and start taking care of his responsibilities.
Well, that area is in wetland jurisdiction, so falls under your control as well.
See,
Do
they paved the parking lot on top of the building. And put a berm.
We
Stop
are
the walk for flowing.
And the
It
water
goes
comes
just
straight down the
Straight
hill.
down.
We are proposing a berm around the.
That's all we need. You do that, that's great.
We are more than in agreement with the berm around there, but now we have damage, so we're
That's a
looking
good
at the
thing.
damage also.
Well, that's a civil matter.
Okay.
The damage that's already done is really nothing the Conservation Commission can do, but the Conservation Commission does have the control to help prevent that from happening again, and it sounds like Mr. Hazen, with this berm, you think that's a solution?
Yeah, what it's gonna do is not direct, it's not gonna allow the water to flow off in that direction anymore, it's gonna direct it down,
Does it go down the
down the
parking
Manchester
lot?
Road,
Yeah.
so.
What will happen is it'll go down that hill, and then it'll turn right and go down our property to the drain.
Yeah, sure. But
Is
see,
there
we
a-
get-
is there a
we get
storm drain?
3 really wet spots any time.
What's your
it
name,
rains.
sir? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
What's your name?
My name is Edward Lecoutere,
Okay, same address?
same address.
Okay.
This is my spokesman, and sometimes I butt in, you know. But, no, we've had this for over 3 years now. And what it does during the winter, when the sun melts, it comes right into our parking lot, and we got a skating rink.
We've got a total ice skating rink, and my husband's handicapped and does not need to be out there ice skating.
Okay.
If you change the berm and change the direction to go down the hill, what's gonna happen is the skating rink's gonna be right in front of our building going to the drain.
Can you do me a favor again and go back to here?
Sure.
So,
What they're talking about doing is putting a berm in along this edge and bringing it down here. And what's gonna happen is we're downhill, so it's gonna come down here right to this drain.
what you're saying is goes into your parking lot?
No, it'll be right on the edge, and
So-
we're gonna have a skating rink trying to get out of our parking lot.
At
Now-
that point, it's sounding like more of a planning board issue.
Yeah, the public roadway is planning board.
Yeah.
Wetlands issue is our board.
Okay.
Well, I think right now the wetland issue needs to be addressed, and I think
Yeah.
we're fine with that.
I think, so if Mr. Hazen puts his berm in, you're okay with that? And then
Fine
I
with
think
that.
down at the bottom, there's more of a planning issue.
Can we get our rocks put back in?
Yeah, we can't force them, that's a civil matter.
The trees in question through the chair, are those in the wetland areas that are broken? Hanging, do we
Well,
know?
if you look at the map, he has a couple of yellow lines.
Yeah,
So, the yellow line goes about right there, so I'm guessing that some of them are.
so I don't know, I
Where's
mean,
that yellow line?
It's on this
it's
map.
on the big map here.
Oh.
I can point it out.
Guess my point being, if a couple of those trees are broken over their parking lot in the wetland
Yeah, I
area,
see that line.
I would be okay if they
The
wanted
R
to
line.
safely clean those up.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Farren should clean
Well,
it.
Mr. Fenari,
Yeah.
I'm saying put this on his order,
This is the roof print.
if they're in the wetland area.
Well,
This is
any
the next
tree that overhangs the property line, the portion that's over the property line is technically theirs. The part, the stump is on the hill on Mr. Fenari's land. So you'd have to get permission to cut it over the property
And
line.
he never gave us permission.
Yeah, but
If you-
keep in mind that property line is an invisible line that goes
Straight
straight
up.
up the
I understand
space.
that. I
So
understand
if you need to.
The limb is actually on his property.
Oh,
It broke another tree. that
It
was
broke,
supposed to-
it's hanging there.
It's
There's
a big
two,
it's a big
there's
limb.
two hanging.
is it a public, you think it's a public safety issue?
It is.
Come and
We've
check
been
it out. Come see.
Here, look at the picture. It is a safety issue. It could fall any time.
It's something that could be put on as a condition to allow whatever you need to do with those trees in that area, and then, they work it out with Mr. Fenari?
Again, we can put it on that, we can't force them, we can allow it.
Right.
And I would be happy to allow that.
We tried, I talked to George
We've talked to
4 or
Jim a
5
couple
different
times.
times. I said, I'll pay to take the trees down.
Mhm.
He said, no,
Yeah,
flat out no.
that's
You know, if it
that's,
falls
again,
on
is a civil
anybody
matter.
that visits our home, which it easily could, that is our door for entry. If it falls on anybody,
Well,
I'm gonna sue his pants off.
remember, we had 2 big limbs
We have had limbs
fall
fall.
onto our door, okay?
I
From this
completely
tree.
understand.
And our cars were underneath it.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah, like I said, we can't force him to take the trees down, we're just a wetlands board. But we can allow him, and
Your
I
problem
personally
started when they paved the parking lot.
would be
Yeah.
completely okay with that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because when I first proposed it a few years ago to the board, they said, oh, no, you gotta take the tree down, but you gotta plant a new tree too.
Mhm.
All right?
And we're okay
And I
with
had no
that, but we
problem.
can't even get in there to do it.
Right. I understand, it's a tough thing. It's
He
tough for us.
wants to buy our properties, he's trying to force us into
Yeah, see, that's the
selling for nothing.
frustration we
Yeah,
have.
yeah, that's not an area we get into, that's more of
Okay.
a civil matter, I'm sorry.
I know,
All right,
All right.
but he's not a neighbor that in good conscience is treating our,
So do you wanna continue to a planning board?
I would like to see it continued
No,
from
I'm
planning
not.
board.
I'm not
What I
doing
wanna
that.
do with
I know.
the
Right, right.
What's your address at that building again?
356.
Oh, then, you said
Yeah,
planning board is
Road.
August first, right?
Sutton,
ZBA is August 1st,
Yep.
planning
Not
board's August
final,
5th.
whatever.
And we would be August sixth or seventh.
Our mailing address is,
Yeah, if you're right on that, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Make a motion to continue to August 7th at
yeah, okay. Yeah.
We have, 7:35.
at 7:35.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, who made the second?
I did.
Order conditions. Not closed.
Continue to,
Continue to July 17th and
Sir,
then
we all are
August
here, have we made our point?
Yeah.
and what time was it?
7:35.
7:35.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What the issue is.
Yeah, it was the same. The fence around the dumpster, and then this is taken care of.
Well, now the issue is their stuff too.
I don't know if you realize this or not.
I'm sure
Obviously
you
not.
didn't, I'm not trying to blindside you,
Yeah,
but it's an issue.
but George knows about it.
His son does too.
He knows about our building too.
All right.
You can
Thank
keep
you.
it.
Glenn's not here, is he?
He wants to continue to the end.
He
It
would like
was-
to go to the end of the meeting
Okay.
because he's at another meeting. So if you
A
wanna
motion to
just,
table.
I don't think you have a motion, you just, I don't think. So
We
move
can.
it. Table it.
Make a motion to table to the end of the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
7:20.
Is Mr. Coffin here?
Mr. Coffin here?
Okay.
Okay. Table that one as well?
Make a motion to table cold water fisheries till later on in the meeting.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So we get some board business.
Hold on, I'm gonna catch up to you.
We could maybe do Mr. Moran.
Yeah, where is he?
Oh, it's 8:30.
Did we give him a time, or?
Yeah, big time. But he hasn't, but there's no abutters notifications or anything.
Okay.
so-
I didn't get that motion when you tabled the 7:21. Who did the motion?
Joyce made this. I made the 7:20. Joyce made the 7:10.
Who seconded?
Zach on both.
Mr. Moran, he's scheduled for 8:30, but there's no notices. Can we have him up now, even though it was published as 8:30?
Yeah, it's not,
It's not a public hearing.
Okay.
Sure.
Mr. Moran, you wanna come on up? And just for background on this he's downstream from the Sibley Dam project, and he's getting silted in. He has a working farm. We did the site visit there today in the monsoon.
I'm gonna recuse myself. from this.
Yeah, Mike McGovern recuses for this one as well.
Sorry I didn't have extra galoshes.
Oh, it's all right, I'll send you the bill, I get the dry cleaning bill.
I didn't realize.
And it is a historic property located at 80 Burbank. So Mr. Moran, like we talked about, this is informal, just, wrap our head around it. Thank you. Oh, watch out for that.
Ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. My name is James Marin. Thank you for taking the
Marin, I'm
time.
sorry.
That's quite all right. Dave, thank you for taking the time to hear this today. Free Grace Marble Farm, I'll just go through some, I'll make this very quick. Free Grace Marble Farm originally settled in 1731. It is a National Historic District. When it was proposed to become a district, its primary reason for consideration was its agricultural heritage. So it's been a working farm with a couple of recent interruptions for essentially 300 years. The farm was originally settled in 1731. It's a National Historic Landmark, and it's under a preservation and conservation easement with Historic New England, which means that nothing essentially other than what's required to maintain and keep structures in place will ever be changed. It can't be subdivided. They will allow the addition of agricultural buildings to support agriculture because they think that a farm without animals isn't a farm, right? You know, so it's important to them that there is something living there and there is a farming activity on the property. I didn't bring my historic resource map with me tonight, but as part of the filing, there was I brought it to the May 1st meeting. There was a map that outlined how the land was used, dating back to the 18th century, 1700s, and the agricultural pond as it is today exists on the map, the historic resource map that goes. So it's been an agricultural pond, a farm pond for centuries. The farm, in terms of its current use, I currently have a flock of 39 Icelandic sheep. The flock is registered with the USDA. This spring I had 22 lambs, and I'm planning to continue to increase the size of the flock as the condition of the land. I don't use pesticides or fertilizers, so it's taken some time to get the pasture back, but as the quality of the pastures and water sources and all that stuff improves, my intention is to add some islanders and really make it representative of what it should be. The farm I do file taxes as a farm. And the dredge pond is to serve as a livestock water source. And that's essentially it. So is a unfortunate complication to the breach of or the failure, it started with the failure of the Sibley Reservoir Dam. A significant quantity of sediment has settled into the pond, which unfortunately, as a consequence, the original boundaries are no longer existent. About half of it is now vegetated. So my objective is to get in there in the dry. The Dankos have agreed, as the engineers agreed, to allow us to use the Sibley Reservoir Dam structure to impede water. So we should be able to get a nice dry site and get the work done very quickly. The wet sediment we plan on storing immediately. If you look at the, is it up there?
Oh, I can bring him an aerial anyway. That help?
Yeah, it does. So we're gonna set up when the material comes out, it's gonna need to dry before it can be transported or graded. So we're gonna set up a sediment detention facility around here that has all of the appropriate sediment controls to keep anything from moving. This will also be an area where we use to place some final fill, and the balance of the fill will be located across the street. Sediment controls, everything, we'll make sure that everything is done legitimately. We're asking for consideration, or I'm asking for consideration to do this agriculturally. I'm happy to say that the Dankos and myself have reached an agreement as to how this is all gonna get taken care of financially. And since they've been doing the pumping on the dam and things are historically dry, time is really of the essence to get in there and get the work completed. So any guidance that you could provide help me to that end would be greatly appreciated.
We'll briefly talk about it. I just wanna start out by saying this is an exempt activity. Working farm dredging is an exempt activity, as Brandon and I spoke about earlier.
I can point out, I'd like to point out chapter and verse too.
Okay.
So, this is considered normal maintenance of land and agricultural use, and if you scroll down to number 7, reads the cleaning, clearing, grading, repairing, dredging, operative word, or restoring of existing man-made or natural water management systems such as reservoirs, farm ponds, irrigation systems, field ditches, cross ditches, etc., for the purpose of maintaining favorable conditions for ongoing growing or raising of agricultural commodities. So, Mr. Marin, is that what you're doing here?
That's exactly
What
we're
is the
doing.
pond used for primarily?
The pond will be used, we're gonna cobble it, and we're gonna put a fence around it, and the animals are gonna use it as a primary water source.
So the animals are gonna be down there?
The animals will be drinking out of the pond. You can come take selfies with your family watching the sheep drinking from the pond. So no, my intention is to have the farm function as it did 150 years ago, right? And that's the way it did. And there's logic and wisdom to it. You know, there's a reason that that's the way it was done. So,
Well, that is all allowed as outlined right here. I guess the only concern that I have is maybe some of the people up in water quality and DEP and the TMDL people will be concerned about potential of fecal coliform bacteria entering the waterway as a result of direct contact with the water, with the animals, and them doing their business in the water, that's all. But is that historically how the pond has been used?
yeah, if you look at the pond, you'll see that the banks of the pond are all cobbled to prevent mud from, as they go down to the water. It's all graded and gradually cobbled down to the level that the water normally sits at.
Yeah. All right, and you said you're gonna put a fence around it?
I will put a fence around it.
Fencing in the buffer zone is an exempt activity as long as as long as it does not prohibit wildlife movement. So it can't block off an animal's movement along the stretch of the river. So, it's something to talk about when the RDA comes in.
Okay. I would like I would like, even though it is an exempt activity, I would like some town oversight. I'd like you to do a pre-construction visit, and I would like to make sure that everything that can be done to assure that it's done correctly is my objective.
Okay. Thank you.
Joyce, any comments on this?
Well, we were out there this afternoon in the torrential downpour, and I was surprised at the amount of siltation that had blocked the pond. What you see as grass there now was pond, so there is an extensive amount of siltation into your property.
It's unfortunate, but luckily the Dankos, it started off as difficult conversations, and as we all kind of aligned, they became much better. So
And that was wonderful to hear that you reached an agreement.
they're good people.
Bill?
I think it's great. It's gonna be nice to see it back to its original.
Zach?
I think it's a good idea, or I think it's a good idea to restore it to what it was.
Nicole?
I think it's a great plan.
Mr. Mayor, were you planning on starting right away and then filing an RDA, or how are you planning on going about this?
I would like your guidance as to the best way to do it. I'd like to get started, in a perfect world, I'd like to get started with pre-construction activities, get in some of the construction roads and stuff like that, get the silt fencing up, and have a pre-construction meeting on site before we actually start pumping.
Can we do that before we have an RDA, or Art, what do you think?
Technically, yes. The RDA is still a good thing to have in your back pocket in case someone complains. And you could say, here, I have my determination and approval from the Conservation Commission. It's a safety net, in case something, it's like an insurance,
So
policy.
if the board's okay with it, we'll allow him to start, and he's gonna have to contact our office through Brandon's email and.
He's already He's already done that.
Okay, but he's just gonna have to contact it to set up,
The other thing is I'll need the checks so you can go forward.
he's gonna,
Yes.
he's gonna have to contact Brandon to set up a meeting for pre-construction and also pay the consultant fee. Cause that wouldn't
Well, not with an
usually,
IDA, but
usually, he wants a pre-construction
Yeah.
meeting, so that's gonna be extra, just
Yeah,
to
no,
get
whatever
it out
the,
publicly.
whatever,
So if you wanna come in tomorrow, I can set this all up
that'd be great.
for the next
I gotta,
meeting.
I gotta get him a number, it's gonna be bigger than that one, because that's, we're going beyond.
There's a
Send
motion
me
on
the-
that?
Yes, sir.
I don't like the bigger.
no, not yet, because see, this isn't a public hearing.
Right, this was
Oh,
just, yeah, this
right,
was,
okay,
this,
so I didn't know if we
No,
wanted
he-
it just on record that we're
No.
allowing him to start.
thank you, Mr. Maron, we appreciate it. Alright,
So, just to be clear, pre-construction activities, mobilization, that kind of stuff, get it ready,
Yeah, do all your prep work,
give you a call,
give me a call.
see Wanda tomorrow with a checkbook,
Yeah.
and we'll set up the advertisement and get all that.
One's here.
okay, thanks.
Have you not advertised, well, she advertises for the RDA.
Okay,
She does all that, you just have to give her a check for the fee,
okay.
and she takes care of it.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good luck, have a good night.
Thank you for the ride.
Yeah, thanks for the shower. Do we have paperwork on this 7:30, Wanda?
What about the co-op fish, yeah.
We'll do the 7:30 first. Should be fairly easy. Okay, 7:30. Oh, this is right, okay. The Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 17th, 2019, at 7:30 PM at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Uxbridge Road, Sutton, Mass. The purpose of this hearing is to review a request for a determination of applicability submitted to the Conservation Commission by Stephen Anderson, Sutton, Mass. The project consists of removal of a dead 27-inch oak tree on map 15, parcels 23 on 18 Newton Drive, Sutton, Mass. This notice is publicized in accordance with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, commonly known as the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sutton Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Welcome.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, babe.
All right. Is paid or no? I don't know what, I don't.
That's one.
Wanda, are the fees paid on this?
Yes.
Yeah, fees are paid?
18 Newton Drive, okay.
Ads done?
Ads done, fees are paid, yeah, everything's done.
Everything's all set? Okay. This is just strictly our board, so come on up and you can explain your, what you wanna do.
Yeah, they, and the Arbors come over,
Okay.
determine.
What's your name and address? I'm sorry, sir.
Steve Anderson, 18 Newton Drive, Sutton, Mass. Arbors been there, Dean is dead. Had a couple near misses on the neighbor's deck, it's overhanging. They give me an emergency permit till the 12th. Crane could not get there by then. I'm asking for an extension till the 26th. If Enterprises, Charlton, Mass, was gonna be taking it down on the 26th, so I was asking the extension to the 26th. They, called me last week, confirmed 26th, but, some of the paperwork was good till the 12th. So I just came back up to see Wonder again, this, I do this proper. Just need a little extension to it, it's, definitely dead and a couple near misses on my neighbor's deck.
Did we have pictures of this tree or anything, or?
I don't have any.
We-
They have pictures, arborist there.
Okay, we had an arborist letter, so this is an old,
Yeah, I don't know.
this has already been done. Okay.
Oh, yeah,
We issued an emergency certificate, so we need to ratify the emergency
Right.
certificate.
I'm gonna
Okay.
make a motion to ratify the emergency
And
certificate
extend it.
and extend it through August 1st,
And,
2000.
They called me, 3 days ago, verifying the 26th will be there at 8.
July 26th, right?
Yes,
Okay.
26th.
I'll extend it to the first, and that way you
So
get
you're
a couple
golden.
wiggle room.
Yeah, okay.
Through August 1st.
And remember, this is also an RDA, so you can give them a negative determination tonight too.
Yes.
I mean, it's really after tonight.
We have
Oh.
we have a motion for the extension. the Sutton
Okay,
Fund
so
too.
you did
Second.
the motion.
All
did
those
you-
in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's just, no,
How about the RDA?
Okay, so what do you wanna do with the RDA?
You wanna look at the dead tree, anybody?
I believe it's still dead.
Okay.
Believe me, yes.
So we just,
I'll leave on this one.
what would we do on the RDA? Just make a motion to,
And negative
You-
determination?
make a motion of negative determination with the tree in question at 18 Newton Drive.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You're good to go.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. No conditions correct on that.
Wanda, thank you. You did
Uh,
professional.
Can you close the public hearing on that?
Oh, yeah.
Make a motion to close the public hearing on 18 Newton Drive.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Who did the second on your motion, Bill?
Joyce and Zach, in harmony.
Yeah. You can make it Zach.
Okay, I'll put one, you have it.
All right, we can, go back to 710 project update,
Thank you.
RDA Econolodge filing. Come on up, Glenn.
We thank you that you could take me out of turn. It was in Leicester Conservation, it just took a little, didn't have a quorum for a while. And they finally got one. The update would be, we talked to Judy Schmidt, who issued me an email that discussed my filing, and she thought that we were actually doing physical work in the riverfront area with equipment to get over to the dam. I says, no, we're not doing any physical work in the riverfront area with equipment. It's a simple copper dam in front of the existing steel dam, 6 feet long. It's on the plan that you have, 1 foot going into the dam, sealed,
She can't.
1
Can't
foot,
say. Sorry.
then sealed with sandbags on the bottom. And then we would be able to de-water that small area and, pump, de-water it, and then cut with a torch, the 4 foot wide, 1 foot 3 inch deep, half moon, so that trout will only have to jump 1 foot 3 inches, and they can't jump to 2 foot 6. And one other thing more on, trout fishery and access. The new studies that are coming out will show, and my example is Coal Mine Brook, but there are studies that show that, and I just left the brook running into Manchog after I left you. I looked at that cold water fishery that used to be over there in the 60s, that's at the Sutton, Douglas, Oxford line. There aren't any trout left in it. It's all black-nosed dace. And one of the reasons I'm bringing that up is, if you have a trout fishery and you have a body of water down below, and this is the recent studies, when it becomes stressful up here, if you have a large pond down there, say even in the winter, if the water gets too cold, they'll go down and they'll overwinter. They do this in Quincy with Coal Mine Brook. State says to me, really, this is in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s. Really, we didn't know that. Well, all the latest studies on trout, I'll send some over. If there's a stressful condition up here and you have a body of water, say in the winter time, they can then use that for the winter, then come back up into the stream. What's happening at the Econolodge, anything that, if there was anything left upstream, there isn't, because we electroshocked it with Fish and Wildlife did, and we sent you those data. There's no trout above the dam. But there is a pond down below, and there are trout from the, 146 down to the pond.
You're talking about Woodbury Pond?
Huh? Yes. Yeah, they,
Oh, yeah.
that's a winter holdover pond for even the trout that are in that section that's by Market 32 on the south side of it. There's no winter holdover for any trout that, or summer holdover, if they had to move downstream. When stressful conditions happen upstream, they will move downstream to find colder water and deeper holes. Once you go over that dam on 146, there's no getting back up. So what the state proved was there's no trout left up there, even though it's still determined a cold water fishery. I re-seined it last week. It's packed up with, what they call them water fleas. It's another little crustacean, another food supply. There was a lot of dragonfly larvae in there also. Again, we're just confirming that the macros are still in there, and all we're trying to do is give the trout accessibility upstream. Obviously, things can go downstream. Niagara Falls, they only lose 90% of the fish that fall over Niagara Falls, apparently according to the studies and everything we were just saying. So things can go down pretty far. It's kind of far to believe that they made it that 200 feet down, but that's all that stuff. The point is 2 foot 6, you can go over, but you can't get back up, and that's all we're trying to do. So with Judy Schmidt, with her discussion, it was that no, anything that the commission decides on this RDA, we're not gonna balk at it. We'll go along with the commission's decision if you're not working physically in the room front. But the reason why I'm here is because it is an RDA, and if the commission was gonna force, and I know maybe you could make a vote, but if the commission, I thought that the DEP might appeal your decision, that's why I withdrew. Cause I said, I'm not gonna waste my client's $500 with the filing for the RDA, so I wanted to withdraw before we had hearings and that, so maybe I could use that money towards an NOI. After talking to her, she says, no, we're all set with whatever the commission goes with. Now, I'll take it at that, but although she did say in her letter, she wanted to see the decision. That's fine with me. I'm here again. If the commission, if you can make a, I don't know, straw poll vote, which most people don't do. If I wanna bring back in the RDA, I wanna go through this, I want this thing to be done this year. If that can occur, I'm gonna ask to reinstate through Wanda, the RDA, and get back in front of you the next meeting or whatever meeting you can put me on. And we would, complete that process and have this done before the fall rains. That's where I
We
stand.
understand. What do you think?
Do I need to re-advertise this, or did I?
Yeah,
did
I would
just
think
let
so.
it
I would think so,
So-
'cause it's a new meeting, yeah.
You filed an RDA.
Yes, sir.
But then Judy raised.
Questions about riverfront.
Right, well,
And-
you're
and-
also working in the land underwater.
I mean, I'm physically, I could sandbags around the edge, so I don't have to disturb any land in the water body.
But you're creating a cofferdam.
A cofferdam of 6 feet long by 1 foot into the existing steel dam, sealed off so that that area is dry, so that, yes, when I cut, I'm not cutting with a blowtorch into water through the dam. Yeah?
So, I'm
And- and
trying
one-
to understand how the cofferdam's gonna work, because.
Here it is.
Yeah,
It's directly on the water side, obviously, of the existing steel dam, which is 20 feet across. This cofferdam would be 6 feet long, 1 foot in front of the in front of the existing steel dam.
mm-hmm.
It would seal off an area that is 4 feet on an arc, 4 feet across, 1 foot, 3 inches deep. I could de-water that one small area, and then I'm putting a staging in the water, regular steel staging, and then the cutter, the torch guy, could just torch out that 4 feet across, 1 foot 3, half moon.
Is it a quick thing?
Oh, it's quick, he'd have it done in an hour. And the DEP said, if you file a notice of intent, or if you do it this way, you're gonna end up at the same place. It's just gonna be the same project. It's a minor.
Did Judy sound like she would have objected to an RDA?
She already has the RDA.
Right,
No.
did she saying, oh, you're in a resource area proper, this is NOI?
She said what the commission, DEP is not gonna go against what the commission votes. That's what she said, directly to me. But so what was this other point? If I was in the riverfront area, I had a chairman of a commission back in the 90s, actually removed from the board because his own board gave a negative determination for work in the riverfront area on a building. You can't work in the riverfront area. The ponding area is not riverfront area. The riverfront extends from the bank inland. So I'm not in the riverfront, but if I was thought to be in the riverfront, you have to file it.
And you're not along the bank, you're like more in the middle, but
I'm
thing
on
is,
the
is
dam
it,
itself.
you're gonna be in land underwater, right?
The 1 foot 3 by 6 feet across, here's the plan, let me please pull it out. It's part of your submission.
I don't even know if you're gonna need to do that, Glenn.
Well, I would like to show you.
I think I have a feeling where the commission's going with this. It's really not my decision at this point.
Okay.
It's whatever you're comfortable with.
Your motion on this?
Like you said, they're gonna end up at the same point, and Judy Schmitz at DEP says she's gonna go along with whatever
Yeah.
the commission
I wouldn't-
decides.
I wouldn't put words in her mouth, because obviously that's like looking for a smack across the head, so that is what was
Any
stated.
comments, Joyce?
Yes, Glenn's been working on this for a few years, and we've seen his progress along the way, and I think an RDA would be sufficient.
I agree.
Bill?
Thank you for your time.
I agree. Mike, Zach, Nicole? Okay.
I'll talk to Wanda tomorrow morning, we'll make sure as soon as we can get back on the agenda, we'll be back in front of you.
Excellent. Thanks,
Thank you
Glenn.
for
Thank
your
you.
time
Have a good
so
night,
much.
Glenn.
Thank you
Night.
so much.
All right, it is now
Do you,
seven.
No problem.
is it 7:20 guy here?
He wasn't here at 7:20, so we'll do 7:40 first, and we can wait until we have a break.
Thanks. Thank you.
we're just gonna hold off on 7:40 for 1 minute. Is somebody here for Coldwater Fisheries, Zap the Blackstone, Peter Coffin? That's definitely tabled to the end now.
Okay.
Okay,
Definitely,
all right,
yeah.
can I have the paperwork on 7:40, please?
128, I put that one first.
Thank
on
you.
the line.
The Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 17th, 2019, at 7:40 PM at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Uxbridge Road, Sutton, Mass. The purpose of this hearing is to review a notice of intent submitted to the Conservation Commission by Leonard Zide, Boston, Mass. The project consists of construction of 56 cottage-style units of a continued care retirement community, which is a portion, is located within the 100-foot buffer zone in BVW on map 18, parcel 17, number 128, and 18, number 142, Armsby Road, Sutton, Mass. The notice is publicized in accordance with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, commonly known as the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sutton Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Welcome.
Good evening, how you doing?
Good. Do you have any applications with any other boards?
Yes, we do. Planning board right now, we're in front of the planning board. But that, you just read the notice just for one of the 2 notices of intent that we filed?
Right, it has to be filed separately,
Yeah, yeah,
in that 141.
yeah, so do you, I don't know if you wanted to go through the entire, through that notice first in that order, or combine them?
Okay. And who's Patrick Burke? Do we have your resume on file?
Nope, I can.
Okay, good, if you could get me one. Do we have the abutters notices, Wanda?
Yeah,
we just gave them.
Yeah,
Okay.
we just kind of,
Fees are paid?
fees are paid,
Do we have a DEP number?
no, not yet, on either one of them.
Not yet. And I'm sorry, what were the boards that you have outstanding applications with?
Planning board right now.
Just planning. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I take note of everybody's names so that when the,
Trying to get me to slow down?
no, when the order of conditions is issued, I write it in the findings of fact who went to the meetings and represented, so could I get names and spellings? That's great. Anybody, all right?
Randy Waterman from Compton Property Development with the applicant.
And,
Brian Waterman, WDA Wetland Specialist.
yeah. Patrick Burke. Cousin, my middle name, my mother's maiden name.
Okay, I
Okay.
have plans here, do you wanna up
Thank you.
there, or do you wanna up there?
Are they full size?
thick?
Why don't you give a copy to Mike? Does anybody down there want a full size copy?
I do have a question through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Since the second one
There's
is a
like-
minute away, should these be done together where we read the second one in, or do you want them completely separate? I don't know if there's a lot of overlap.
Yes, I think that's what your suggestion, read
Okay.
the second one in.
Can we do the second one at the same time?
Sure you can, just read it into the record, because they kinda go together.
Can I have the second one and we'll do the same thing? Okay, is it a minute early? Do we have to wait a minute?
No,
7:50 by my watch.
All right. The Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 17th, 2019, at 7:50 PM at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Uxbridge Road, Sutton, Mass. The purpose of this hearing is to review a notice of intent submitted to the Conservation Commission by Leonard Zide, Boston, Mass. The project consists of the construction of 37 cottage-style units as a Wedgewood Farm North Continued Care Retirement Community, which is a portion is located within the 100-foot buffer zone in a 200-foot riverfront area on map 18, parcels 129 at 141 Armsby Road, Sutton, Mass. This notice is publicized in accordance with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, commonly known as the Wetlands Protection Act, in the Sutton Wetlands Protection Bylaw. And is this the same? We have, planning board is open.
Correct.
We,
They're both continued to August 5th.
okay, and we have the abutters notifications on this one as well?
Yes.
yeah, I think
Yes.
they're probably all in one, because, you know, that
And we
Okay.
sent
We still need a resume.
the notification, we put both in
That's
with
o-
each
that's
green
good.
card too,
Okay.
so they were notified for both.
Okay.
projects.
They will probably be having Board of Health fund.
Yeah, this is gonna be, you're gonna file with the Board of Health on this, right? This is a septic.
Town sewer.
Is town sewer? Okay.
Yeah.
And there's no ZBA issues with this activity? Okay, great.
So I'll explain sort of the project, I guess, first in general, and then I go into some of the existing conditions. conditions, and I think Brian has some other information on the existing conditions, and then Pat can talk a little bit about the drainage, but I'm not sure how much time you really have allotted. I think there was like 20 minutes in total on the agenda, so I didn't know if we wanna try and hold that for now, or.
We're gonna try to go as quick as we can, but.
Okay, all right.
But we'll work with you.
Okay.
We're happy.
All right.
Thank you.
So essentially, the project is on 57 acres on both sides of Armsby Road, just after you turn off of Route 146. And the project that is proposed is a continued care retirement community, which is allowed in both of the business and residential zones by special permit. So that's why we're in front of the planning board now. So, it would be 93 units of age-restricted housing, so one person in the house would have to be at least 55 and nobody under 18 to live in the house permanently. So it's actually adult housing. Because of what we'll talk about in a minute, the wetlands and the buffer zones and all the work that's been done on the site over the years, we didn't really wanna follow the business zone and try and, most of its own business, or at least more than half. We didn't wanna go business and try and do office and medical, so that's one of the reasons we were kinda leaning towards trying to do something that's residential, smaller footprints. Your housing forum in town last year that we attended was talking about small or affordable, and that's exactly what we're proposing. So, that's sort of the intro. The site is broken into two pieces essentially, and, I know everybody can't see this very well in here, but
It's
I'll-
on the screen.
It's up there as well, okay. So, here, let's orient this, so it's the same as the one on the screen.
Yeah, there you go.
So basically this is Armsby Road here, this is Route 146 heading in a southerly direction. This is the Enchanted Passage bookstore on the corner. The O'Connell Lodge that you just talked to a minute ago is up here at the top of the site. There's a small chiropractic office right here in the top corner of the north piece. The Village at Pleasant Valley Condominiums is here, and then just to the west of that, this is the Pleasant Valley Country Club. And then as you come down Armsby Road, this is the old jug handle on Armsby. This is where the cemetery is. This is Burnett Road here that runs out towards Central Turnpike. So basically, we're talking about really two parcels, south side, north side. The south side of the property is a total of 35 acres. The north side is 22.5 acres. Both properties are currently owned by Unibank. There are no structures on either of the properties right now. The only thing that exists, on the south side, you can see this kind of two separate cuts through the property. That's a Tenneco gas easement, and there are two buried Tenneco lines that pass through the property. But other than that, no existing structures. On the south side, basically, there's about 1,300 feet, I believe, of frontage on Armsby Road. And there's about 1,000 over here on 146. On the north side, there's about 800 feet of frontage on 146. But in both cases, in this area, Route 146 is a no-access highway, so we couldn't bring driveways out or access onto Route 146 directly from the property. So if we were to use the business zone, which is the east side of this property, and from this point over this half, and we were gonna try and use the business zone out here for a hotel or motel, something like that, we would still have to bring vehicles down Armsby Road and into the two sites, which we really didn't wanna do. We didn't think that made sense. It's a very residential street, and so I think the proposal as a CCRC makes much more sense than trying to use it as business zone. And again, the CCRC is allowed in both of these districts, residential and business, by special permit. The wetlands were flagged earlier this year, and Brandon has walked those. We did an RDA with, ANRAD with the commission. So the wetlands that you see on here, which are the dark green boundaries here, those were confirmed in February of this year with your group, so that's been completed. The site has, the south side has 3 separate ponds on the property. There's been a historic gravel pit through the site here for years, and then there was a small beaver dam behind this, so the wetland has expanded in this area, but we'll talk about that a little bit with the proposed design. But basically, water has backed up here over years, and now there's approximately a foot of water in there typically. This flows down a channel down here and connects from this small pond over to the larger pond, and then connects, this is a 36-inch concrete pipe, and then there's a 36-inch pipe under Armsby, and another pipe under Old Armsby that comes into the site. And I know you've talked to Glenn Kravosky that was just here in the highway department about removing that northerly pipe to improve water quality conditions on the south side as water flows and eventually gets back to Cold Spring Brook. So on this side of the property, south side, there's a little band of wetland around this area, a little bit around here, and a little pocket right there, but fairly confined, not quite as large. On the north side, that's where you see most of the wetland, so the channel that comes out of this pond flows in a northerly direction. It's about 1,100 feet through the site from the beginning to the end. There's actually about a 10-foot drop in elevation from the front to the back, but because it's 1,100 feet or so from here to here, it's only a 1% grade, so as you stand back there in the wetland, it's flat as a pancake. Cold Spring Brook is not shown on this, I'll show you on the aerial, but basically that's another 800 feet up. Here's the chiropractic office, there's a single family home that's abandoned here, here's a common lodge, so the stream channel comes up here, goes in across their driveway and into the pond right here that connects to Cold Spring Brook. So in total, that's another 800 feet past the site, so it's about 1,800 feet from Armsby Road to hit Cold Spring. And this is, I think, just a good way, we show it on there with kind of the grass color, but this helps get a better feel for what was altered years ago when these were gravel pits. So the south side was used extensively, so they had access in, there's a small cart path that comes in right here, that comes in, this area was cut, and they just stopped when they hit the gas line because they couldn't dig much at the gas line. So this area was dug out, there's a cart path here, then that cart path continued around here, as I mentioned. So there's a beaver dam that established behind this, but basically a cart path that came out here, comes back out to Armsby. So the area at the front of the site was cleared, wasn't excavated, it doesn't appear as much as this side. The back side is all wooded, as you can see on here. This is mostly deciduous trees, evergreen over in the corner. You can see the standing area over here where the water has accumulated over the years. The north side, basically from the brook over, this westerly side of the property line, you can see the clearing limits in the aerial photograph, so you get a good handle on how much was used. But basically, there was access through the cemetery property here or along Old Armsby into the site, and then you can see they kind of flared out here, and gravel removal was operation was taken through this whole area. So driving in there today, this area looks just like it does in the photo. There's no topsoil, no subsoil, and essentially nothing growing on most of that area. Same as back here. This area is now inhabited by a bunch of small white pine saplings, but other than that, you can drive in there today and tell exactly where they had removed most of the material. This side of the site, you can see along the brook itself and out in the wetland, there's quite a bit of white pine in there, some evergreens growing along the brook and wet area. And then over on this corner of the site, there is some large pine in this area, but the rest of the site is mostly deciduous. White oak is in there, some of the white pine, as I mentioned, hickory, and a few of the other species. The wetland is I think a fairly standard, typical kind of red maple swamp.
For the most part.
Elm, hemlock, yellow birch, high bush blueberry, and the understory is mostly witch hazel. There's some Pennsylvania sedge, teaberry, hay-scented fern, and bracken fern, I think.
Yeah, that's enough.
Soils on both sides kind of bear out that this was used as a gravel pit years ago, so that both sides are essentially mostly identified as Hinckley, which is a sand and gravel material. The south side on the soils maps even shows the gravel pit removal areas. And the wetlands show up on both of those areas as Scarborough muck, which is a hybrid soil. So as far as resource areas, we've got the wetland on this side. There's no wildlife habitat areas mapped over here. There's no 100-year floodplain and no riverfront areas.
To mean endangered species, natural heritage.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
May I interrupt?
Yep.
There's an PVP noted by Natural Heritage in this pool,
That was gonna be one of my questions.
but
Good
it
to
has a fish population, so
So it could be certified.
that would be it.
So this is probably a little easier or straightforward than this side. So on the north side, we have, the stream itself is not, it is shown on a USGS map as intermittent, but because of the stream stats and the flows, it meets the requirement for a perennial. So we said, let's call it a perennial stream, and that's the way we filed it under our ANRAD. So on this side of the property, we have a 200-foot riverfront on each side of the channel, and as you can imagine, some of this area is in the riverfront, so some of that west side has already been altered. On this side, there's an area in the center of the site that is between the 100 and 500-year flood. So again, there's not a 100-year flood elevation on that side, but there's no work proposed in those areas. And then the other unique part of the site is there's a line that's shown on the plans. You can just see like here, a light blue line that comes down here and crosses over here. This part of the site and this part of the site are both in the Zone 2 to 2 water supply wells for the Wilkinson Water District. And those wells are over here just beyond the new retail center over at this location. So they're about a half mile away coming down this direction, going across 495, and the 2 wells are up in that area.
146.
146.
I'm sorry, did we?
He said 495.
I think people drive faster on 146.
So that's basically existing conditions information. Let's see if we just flip back to that. Yeah. So, this is starting on the south side, so basically we really just took the grading and drainage plans as they were submitted and really used those to try and demonstrate where the work occurs and what kind of resources. So as I mentioned, you can see from the aerial, as you come in on the south side, this entire section in here had been worked and the gravel had been removed. This is a project, actually, there was a larger residential filing 10 years or so ago, but obviously all those permits have expired. So when we tried to sort of use the limit of their footprint, pull things back where we could, and obviously we're using the smallest footprint we can. These buildings are 40 feet wide by 48 feet deep. Each one of these represents a 2-bedroom unit that would have 2-car garage, 2 bedrooms, the bedroom on the first floor and 1 bedroom would be on the second floor. And there are several smaller units you can see through the site. This one, for example, this is a 1-bedroom unit. The planning board, as we're working through what they would like to see, is they really want to have some more even smaller and affordable units. So these units would be 1-bedroom units, and those would be 24 by 48 feet, so they're a little smaller, about 1,000 square feet in total. And those would have a 1-car garage each inside. So basically what we tried to do is we brought our road in. We had initially proposed a dead-end street, basically, so you would come into these units since they don't have a high traffic volume. And we were gonna have the roads come in, so you would come into a point where you're dead end here, you can turn around here with the fire department and come back out. And then we had a separate unit up here at the top on the south side. That connects through here, through that wet area I just mentioned, over to this point. Here's the bookstore again. So basically, we wanted to have a loop road come in. We could work through with the planning board, fire department, and had sign-offs on essentially everything. And then after they really got the full set of plans, they decided that it would be safer in their mind to connect these two with at least some sort of emergency connection. So this is the only place on the project right now in the entire 57 acres where we have any work in a wetland boundary. So at this location, we had to bring a culvert in, and we've got this roadway down to, they were okay with an 18-foot wide reinforced surface, so it doesn't have to be paved, but we can use grass pavers or some other way to reinforce that surface. So it's minimal impact of resource. Total wetland alteration here would be 165 feet at this location, so 165 square feet, and there's about 880 square feet of compensation next to it in places that are most logical. So based on
It's an area that was historically removed gravel for adjacent. It's a great spot to do a location.
This area, as you saw in the aerial photo, this had all been cleared in the past, so this is where we brought in our stormwater detention, pushed the units back as far as we could, utilizing this upland area here. So in total, on the south side of the property, there are 56 total units, and on this side of that 56, 51 of those would be 2-bedroom units, and just 5 of those would be 1-bedroom units. this jumps over to the north side, so this is Armsby Road down here, that's that east corner. The bookstore is right here, this is Armsby here. So as we come in off of Armsby, we have two basically cul-de-sacs on this side. This one is called Lily Pond Drive that comes in, that's the existing pond that is there. It's an isolated pond, and it is about a half acre in size, so there's no outlet to it. And then you can see the channel coming in through the site heading to the north, the wetland boundary on this side. And so again, we're pretty much jammed between these resources to get into the property and bring the road up to the top of the site. And so we held a minimum of 25 feet to any permanent structure. We do have a number of walking paths that we want to build that would wrap around the entire site to make connections from building to building. And that would be in lieu of doing sidewalks everywhere. So the planning board was okay as long as there's connecting paths. So that is what's shown on the plan. These paths, we realize, are very close to the wetland boundary, but the paths that are down here behind the units are really intended to be a mowed path, basically a 5 to 6 foot wide swath that would be mowed initially. And you could wrap it between trees and not have to cut trees down at all. And then after it's used, it would start to get beaten down a little bit and would stay in that condition, and it would just be mowed annually if that's what it takes. But the idea is not to go in and cut anything, bring out top and sub and fill it or do anything like that. So again, this side of the property in total, on the north side, there's 37 total units on this side. And of those units, 28 of those are 2-bedroom, and then 9 would be single bedroom over on this side. So 9 smaller units on this side, and 28 of the bigger units. So again, this would be a short drive that comes in. It was designed so there's a turnaround right here for the fire department, but towards the end of the review, they had asked if we could make this connection around. So again, this would be a reinforced kind of paver path, could be grass pavers, and that would allow them, if they needed to go the full circle, the full circle in the back there. Then over on the west side, the drawing shows right here. So as we come off of Armsby Road, this property right here, this is the existing cemetery property. So that is the jug handle that was Old Armsby Road for years and years. This is the culvert location that you talked to about taking the pipe out of there and just regrading that. So obviously this area is gonna be shut down and not used, it's already in disrepair and not being used. But this property that we're working on has access through the cemetery by deeded right. So the plan is to continue that driveway in, make improvements to it here so these line up, and do a little grading in here, bring the sewer up in this direction. So we would come off at the existing driveway, pushing it a little bit east as where you come off today and come into the site. This is the corner of the property where you would go straight up. And so that continues under this sheet. So again, on the aerial, if you recall, this section over here, as you drive out there, it's wide open, clear, there's no top and subsoil. The side over here, just along the edge of the wetland, is starting to revegetate. There's small saplings and other trees starting to pop up over on this edge. But most of this area right up in here has already been altered. Again, on this side, 37 units, 28 2-bedroom and 9 1-bedroom. And then this roadway would go up to another turnaround, which you can see here. And again, on the aerial plan, you can probably see it on that one, you can see right where we're ending these units right here is where that face up there, you can see the edge of the cut material. So that's right where the roadway is, and we're going just a little bit beyond that with the intention that we could take some of that gravel there, some of the gravel from this slope, and that's what would be used for any road fill on the whole project. So we wouldn't have to bring fill in from other sites and do anything like that. All the fill should be on site, and it's all great material. Let's see. I don't think I mentioned, but it's because this is a continued care retirement community, there will be a management system set up almost like at Pleasant Valley at the villas, where these would be private roadways. So it'd be private plowing, private mowing, landscape maintenance would be taken care of by us. So all of those things would be taken care of. I know a lot of times when you're near a buffer zone, people are concerned about just people dumping all their leaf litter into the wetland, and so obviously we can take care care of that in this case, there won't be an issue because it'll be done professionally, so. Let's see. I don't know if you wanna talk about the.
The riverfront restoration area around.
Here or. So I think on this side is where there's most work in the riverfront, but it's, a lot of the work in the riverfront on this side was already altered. So I think in the calculations that were included, let's see, you've got, alteration to the outer riverfront, not the inner 100 feet, but the outer 100 feet was about 51,000 square feet.
There's
So
518,000 square feet or 11.9 acres of riverfront on the property. Right, about 6,500, is already considered degraded, and, right, I think you said, yeah, 51,000.
would be 10%.
Right, and then we're proposing, over 8,000 square feet of, mitigation and restoration, which, in this area, there's an old fill pile, which is this weird, there's this weird finger that projects out to the wetland. It almost looked like maybe they had done an old, utility through there, but.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody knows what that might have been, it's very strange, you can see the wetland, that is an upland finger that extends out, it's.
You never know, 'cause this used to be a gravel pit, right?
It's probably
Right.
tailings from
Well,
a
right
screen or
here-
something.
It could have been, I don't know, it could have even been excavated, who knows?
Yeah, this, well, the
Yeah.
channel on this side almost looks like it, Brandon, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
It looks like almost filled on that side, this is a fill pile right here, so it almost
Right.
looks like somebody built it out from the road so they could drive, they could back
Yeah,
up to
it's
this
very
edge.
strange.
In gravel pits, they
It's
often,
wooded.
they're digging in the summer when the water table is low, they dig too deep, it gets abandoned, and then ends up reverting,
yeah.
basically
Right.
turning into
Yeah.
a wetland.
Yeah.
This one,
This one has the turn right here.
So,
So we want it-
what are you gonna do with that finger?
So, when this.
Oh, nothing with the finger, we're just
Nothing with the
pointing out.
finger, but there's a fill pile right at the end right here, this flat area, like Randy was saying, it almost looks like maybe they just dumped a bunch of fill to either get in here or on this side. So,
That's about
one of the
1,800.
plans on the planting plan that you have is to remove that 1,800 square feet of fill and restore that riverfront area. And then, additionally here, once the culvert is out and that bank is stable so that, this will just be a stream channel through this embankment now, is remove all this pavement up to this edge where the access around to the, into the site and also adjacent to the, cemetery would remove all this pavement and the gravel shoulder, re-put that back with.
That's called Old Armsby Road right there,
Yes,
is
yeah,
that
yeah.
still a town road, because you probably have to have it officially abandoned if it hasn't been?
It has been,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um,
I have the deed for it, I can get that to you definitely if you wanna see it, but.
Wasn't there a culvert or something that was just taken out of that road?
That's the one
That's
we're
what they're
talking
gonna
right
do,
here.
yeah.
That's what you're gonna,
That's-
okay, all right,
Yeah,
all right.
That's
right
Glenn's
here.
project.
That's Glenn's, right, yeah.
Yeah, this is the one that DPW and Glenn were working on taking out.
Okay.
So you're actually gonna take out that whole section and restore
Take out the
that
pavement.
whole area,
Take out the
so.
pavement
A lot
and
of it's
restore
just
the.
beat up gravel and it's
Yeah.
kind of a mess.
Glenn could've just sat back and done nothing and it would've gotten done anyway.
Right.
Alright.
Well, they wanted the culvert out, so, cause it's blown out, I guess, but,
I think that's on Matt Stenzel's list of things to do, and I'm not sure he's got the time right now or the personnel, I believe, so if that's something that we could help with as part of this, I mean,
Right.
it wouldn't take long to do it.
so that will be revegetated with, upland trees and shrubs and putting some topsoil back in there. So that'll be a nice buffer, and get this area reconnected between these two systems. Get the fill out on that other area, so that restoration and mitigation of almost 8,000 square feet of riverfront area that's previously approved, so. And again, the replication area on my planting plan, this is part on the, kinda right there where you see that cleared area. The wetlands, the beaver dam has created this kind of funneling out, the standing waters in this area, but this is so low and flat. The the hydrology is now at or near the surface, so we have low-growing shrubs, small saplings, and a lot of herbaceous vegetation there. So this is a really good area, to do the restoration area. And again, we're only altering 165 square feet of wetland because, due to the flow through this area, we're doing an open bottom, very wide. How big is the box on this? The box culvert? Yeah, 24 feet wide.
Okay.
So, one, it'll be a critter passage for anything that still wants to get through there. They'll handle all the flows. And we cross at the narrow point, so we're limiting the amount of alterations.
So again, obviously erosion control barriers on the inside of the work around the entire resource area. As part of the CCR requirements under the planning board regs, within the Route 146 district, you have to have sort of a central gathering place. So we've called out in the area between the two ponds, I don't know if you remember from years ago, but originally there was a road designed through here to access the previous project. But it's very nice in here, so we'd like to keep this much more virgin. So we have this called out as a 5-acre park. It's called Newell Park. All the names were selected by the town historically. I think maybe Joyce might have picked those, but, and they're great names, so we're very happy with that. But this is gonna be Newell Park. We have an accessible path in here. We have, community gardens and a bocce court. So this is sort of the central gathering place.
Is
So
that what that
everybody-
is?
What's that?
Is that what that is?
That's what, yes. The boxes?
Yeah, I was wondering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, community gardens here, bocce court there, and this is the only accessible path. All the other paths, like I say, are just mowed paths in the woods, or paths that connect down through the backs of these units into the pocket parks that we have at each of the groupings.
And you have the full set of plans that
Yeah.
has all the planting
Is
plans.
that your checklist, sir, or you all?
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
the only other thing I just wanna mention was, we have given the planning board, and I don't know if it was in the wetland submission, it was, done a while ago with the planning board, but, there are a couple of exhibits that we have on file. We have the architecturals if you'd wanna see them, but there are two exhibits that we showed them that, this is the north side. So basically, we came outside of the buildings 15 feet and the road's 10 feet, and when you do that, everything else on the project, because it's common ownership, would be open space. So this would be permanently dedicated open space, so I think, just to make sure none of the neighbors had concerns that later on you come back and push further in. So on the north side right now, there are 17 acres of open space, or 76% of the total property. And then on the south side, there are a total of 27.4 acres of open space of the 35 acres, so there's a 78% open space on the south side. And we can provide those if you want copies.
Brandon?
Thank you. Okay, let's start with the roof area. I see that you've met the basics of staying at least 100 feet away and keeping your total disturbance less than 10% of the total square footage of the riverfront area on site. You mentioned that portions of the riverfront area are considered to be previously degraded.
Right.
So,
In the absence of topsoil.
because of absence of topsoil, okay.
Or fill, right.
Right, so are you splitting hairs between the two? Or are you just counting them all as,
Well,
undeveloped
previously-
riverfront?
Yeah, they're pretty much all degraded.
They're all degraded, all areas?
Are you
Because
saying-
if that's the case,
Yeah.
that changes the calculus of all this.
Are you saying
What, at
all the
1 to 1?
riverfront is degraded? It's not.
No, not all.
Not all, that's right, so that's what I know, are you splitting hairs between different areas? This area is degraded, this area is
Yes,
not.
it's calculated the amount of riverfront that's degraded. That's in the calculations in there, that was,
Oh, I think I'm talking about the areas that we're restoring, that we're treating as degraded.
I'm just talking about your WPA Form 3.
Oh, okay, yes,
Section
the
B.
areas that are absent of.
Right, because you have, total
10.
proposed alteration of the riverfront area is 51,106, right, which comes up, to about a little under 10% of the
Right.
total, right? But is part of that 51-106 degraded, considered degraded? Did you split hairs between degraded and not degraded in that calculation?
No, I see what you're saying. You're saying, did I take out the 6,500 out of the 51,000 total? I don't believe I did, no.
So you're saying the 6,500 square feet of degraded?
6,510 square feet on-site RFA is considered degraded due to lack of topsoil. And then approximately 1,800 square feet on-site and 7,100 off-site is also degraded.
1,800 is that fill pile out here.
Yeah, so actually that would add up to like 14,000.
It's
You have a total of,
15,400.
both sites, you have a total of 14,000 of that 51,000 is considered
degraded.
degraded.
Yes.
It's actually 15,426 if you add those three up.
Okay.
And
And what was it?
7,100 of that are adjacent off-site, which you can utilize if it's adjacent off-site as part of restoration.
Mhm.
Yes, I should have added those two numbers.
Did you have a
So it's
question on
actually,
that?
What was the total?
15,426 for the three different areas.
Out of how many?
The 51,106 square feet of total riverfront alteration on the property.
Okay.
yeah, and the total riverfront on the site is 518,422 square feet.
Okay, so are you going to be asking for application for, instead of 310 CMR 10.584 for quote-unquote regular performance standards for, performance standards for quote-unquote regular riverfront area versus 10.585 for degraded redevelopment?
Yeah, well, I did 10.585 F and G, so we put that would be utilized for restoration and mitigation measures.
And that applies to the 15,426?
Yes.
Yes.
No,
No,
because it's
6,000 of that,
it's the 1,800 square feet and the
And the-
7116 that's Old Armsby Road. Those are the two that are getting
mitigation.
mitigated. The other part is up here that's already altered, but that's where the development is.
Right.
So I don't think you've counted that in
Right.
future
That was the
restoration.
6,500, no. The
Over there.
mitigation itself is the 8,865 square feet.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that 6,500 square foot number was area that was previously altered, but it's proposed to be worked on.
I'm glad that you're showing all that riverfront restoration work, that we comply with that particular regulation.
And like I said, if you look on the planting plan, you'll see, the species and the density
Yep.
for all that area that we're restoring.
Okay, and here's what I would appreciate. I saw that you had a riverfront area alternatives analysis. This is a really big, potentially controversial project. What I would appreciate is a little more detailed chapter verse riverfront area analysis going through 10.58, for every point for point. Can you do that?
Yeah, we can beef it up.
Thank you. All right. Walking paths.
North side, that's really the walking path, so.
Yeah. Actually, let's step back a second. You showed wood lines. The wood lines that you're showing, proposed wood lines or existing wood lines?
These are proposed on this plan, so that's where they would be cut back.
So where are the existing wood lines?
I don't think we have the existing
They're on the
plan
existing
here.
conditions drawing set at the beginning. This is just the proposed.
Yeah, the existing tree line, we need to turn it back on, cause what it would show is this tying into the existing tree line. So Kathy, you take a note.
But I'm just saying they are on the existing.
But they are on the
drawing set
existing
that's
cover,
there.
yes.
Okay.
But if we turn those on, they will be kind of screened in the background, so you'll see this heavy tree line
Mhm.
tying into the existing one. But this is what the tree line would be after the project was done.
Okay.
So in this area, this is for you.
under the
You
by.
have about 80 feet of tree line before the wetland.
Right, so, thinking about this, under the bylaw, the commission's normal procedure is to count trees that are 5 inches or greater DBH in order to figure out, or try to quantify habitat impacts. But perhaps with the restoration work that's already being proposed, maybe that's not as big a deal. I'll leave that to them. So, just, that's a thought. And the walking paths, I think that is something that really isn't a problem, if not, encouraged, because recreation is one of the public interests of the bylaw, right? So, providing recreational opportunities is something that the commission tries to encourage. My comment on that is you're talking about a 6 foot wide path. I would prefer a hand's length, 4 foot wide, as opposed to 6. And if it's gonna be what we call, mowed, or we call a rake and ride type of path.
Yeah, kind of trim
Sta-
and go around trees
Right.
and keep it,
You're probably gonna have to cut some small brush here and there. But as long as you're keeping it under, you're cutting under 5 inches and you're just keeping to that 4 foot path and you're trying to find the path of least resistance.
As you've seen, there's spots in here where, we have some good sized trees where there's not a lot of ground cover, so
Right.
we can weave our way in on it, so.
Do you have the photos for the crossing that we wanted to?
There.
Yeah, I see somewhere that there's a footbridge proposed.
Yes.
Is that a new footbridge or a?
That is,
Right
so
here.
basically, this is the north side, and we've got these two neighborhoods on the north side, and we have a trail system that goes from this one back out to Armsby, and then across Armsby, and all around the south side. What we'd love to do, these paths are flat, so they should be bikeable. And what we'd love to do is, as you come into the north side like this, we wanted to ask the commission, would it be potential to have the path come down to here, and we picked a spot right back here. We included photos in the filing so you could see
These are in the back here,
mostly
Pat.
skunk cabbage through the wetland in there.
This is
But
a bridge,
that's a path
very,
that's an example
in
that we saw
Millbury.
that we like
Okay,
a lot,
similar.
that's basically,
Yeah, it's at
it's
Clearview
almost
Country
set
Club.
on some of the rocks through the
That's in the
wetland, and
packet.
there's no tree clearing, and it's basically very, very close to grade. So we didn't know if the commission would consider something like that. I think, some foot trails like that are sort of limited projects, but we didn't ask it for that, but we wanted to ask, it would be much better if this could be a loop on the south side, a loop on the north side. You've got trails on 57 acres that are all connected completely.
What I would like to see is the center line staked out in the field and a cross-sectional diagram of the crossing that you're proposing.
If
You
I
can
could,
walk it.
if I could add to that as well, I just watched a meeting in Marshfield, and they did the same thing in a marsh area. They did a footbridge like this, but they had some sort of wildlife attracted to it. I don't know if it was, I don't remember if it was a bird's nest or owl's nest or a house or something on the bottom side of it. So if you could figure out to add some
It's almost hanging off the
some
footbridge.
value to it somehow, I
That's a
think
great idea.
we would.
Bat boxes, things
Yeah.
like that.
Bat box would be, I mean, I don't know if that'd scare somebody off the footbridge, but,
Well, we
you know,
can-
something, if it added a little bit of value, I think.
They'll appreciate less mosquitoes because
Yes.
bats are.
Bats are great, but,
And the bats are taking.
And that's something to talk about too, is wildlife enhancement projects, as part of this project to mitigate for the permanent
the
loss
more
of
mitigation, the better.
habitat, yeah.
Like I said, that particular footbridge is, at Clearview Country Club, and it's, Millbury if you're ever down there, but,
And it's almost really just set on from rock to rock to rock. They
yeah,
did
they
not
have
go
a
in
few
and make
little
a mess.
valleys in the upland area, and they just meandered it through and
Well,
over the stream.
You also have to think about the flow through here. Was there borderline land subject to flooding? I forget.
No, not till
Even
far
so,
down, but-
we know every stream has its own localized floodplain. If you have a spring like we just had, or even a regular, you have to take into consideration that this flow may jump and cause this thing to go flying downstream. So
there should be some kind of consideration for getting it high enough. And I'm not guaranteeing the commission's okay with it, but I'm just,
Right.
if you're gonna go through it, here's my suggestion. You get high enough that you're not gonna have to be worrying about flow hitting it.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Brandon, but that's one reason on this finger that comes out is a knoll. And so that's why we kinda picked this area. There's a little crook in the stream here, which is narrow, and if you come off of this, you're gonna be pretty high above that stream in that area. But like you said, if we stake it out and walk it,
Stake it and
then-
get some more shots all the way across it,
Yeah,
get
or we could
some
go walk it
elevations.
and take.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to.
Yeah.
Okay. Next comment. Will the roads, is this all gonna be, private association with will these roads be, eventually
No, all
taken
private.
over by the town?
All private roads built by us, private maintenance, permanent.
Association paid for by the association?
Correct.
The
Okay.
planning takes that in writing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
We should talk about snow. Should talk about where snow is gonna be stored. We should be talking about use of road salt. Comments on that?
I don't think we've put together a plan yet that shows where you would put them. We had an idea, there's certain areas and places where you could put it in lawn and obviously try and be out of the buffer zone, but it'd probably be smarter if we just put it on a plan and present it.
There might be some planning, have you been farm planning yet?
Yes, multiple times.
Did no, and they haven't mentioned that? This is something that this commission usually asks about, so.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we see it more and more, and it makes sense to have designated areas, so
Yeah.
the first contractor in there doesn't say, oh, there's a nice spot where there's nothing happening, and dumps it into the
Is the
swamp.
town using salt alternatives, do we know, or do we?
Well, this will be private again, so this
Oh,
will all
that's
be,
true, but-
we'll be designating what.
Right, so there might be a little more, ability to use an alternative if you wanna consider it.
Mhm.
So, does the commission have any opinions on use of road salt or potential alternates? Maybe we can save that for a little research and
I would research that
return.
before I'd comment on it, yeah.
Okay. Road salt, research, and snow
The
storage.
good point on that, towards that end, is that, working with the planning board, we were opposed to wide roads. I think 26 is their normal subdivision road, and their regs say kind of follow the subdivision regs, but when we talked to the board, we said, that's really overkill. This is very, very small traffic volume, dead-end streets. So we have the widest road, the main road coming in on each of these is 24 feet with Cape Cod berms, very residential nature, and then the loop roads are 22 feet. And then the emergency connectors that I mentioned are only 18, so they've been very good about feeling comfortable and.
Graves is reviewing it? Graves Engineering is?
They already have reviewed it,
Yeah.
and I think, Pat, you're just this week are reviewing their, responding to their final comments.
Yep, we've got everything put together as a good response to that.
The final comments already?
Yep.
Alright, what are your LID, low impact development, BMPs and, like, tell me a little bit about how you're keeping this low impact development, the stormwater.
Start on the south and head north, I suppose.
I don't wanna cut this short, but we're running late, so.
Alright, in a nutshell, on the south side, we're bringing subsurface infiltration chambers, meeting water quality with stormwater, storm scepters coming into here, discharging outside the 25-foot zone with flared end sections, riprap. We analyzed it, we took the side, analyzed at the resource areas to make sure we meet the HUD standards at the resource areas, not meeting exceeding the existing big discharge to the ponds. Other side to the south, we've got the road coming down, a couple surface detention basins, coming down with sediment 4Bs, CDS, storm scepter criteria for stormwater quality, infiltrating in the area over here, outside the 50-foot.
Those infiltration areas look pretty close to the water, how close are they?
We've actually modified them, those was one of the previous comments, we've actually modified them with the current, so I got outside the 50-foot requirement.
Outside 50 feet? Very good.
So we're actually considering changing these chambers, putting them underground, a little bit more grassed area, proposed additions.
Commission prefers, with the exception of the walking paths, the rake and ride kind of stuff, any permanent disturbance, Commission's policy is stay at least 25 feet away, and if you can stay further away, even better. On the south side, because you don't have to, you're not dealing with riverfront area, it's a completely different thing on the north side.
Yep, I believe we've maintained, except for the stream crossing, where we've met stream crossing standards with the open box.
And that's an existing crossing too, if I remember right.
There's
Yeah,
a
there's a
gravel
car-
cut.
Right.
Yep.
So are you making improvements to the crossing itself, the pipe?
There's no pipe there now, so the gravel path is just washed out, so you
The
have
beaver dam rose the levels and then it breached when the beaver left, and now it just flows over the path and it's created wetland area there.
So what is your crossing right there?
That's the one you were mentioning was a 24-foot wide.
Yeah, we're spanning, Brandon, what we did is. we
It's a
looked
span.
at-
That's all I need to hear.
Yeah, it's a 24-foot span.
Okay, and you're keeping it high enough so that you don't have to worry about flow coming up too
Yeah.
high. All right.
We're over the
Continue, please.
openness ratio.
Oh, real quick, the bocce court and the garden, how far away are they?
They look to be about 25 feet from here. A little bit of grading, possibly a little bit closer.
All right, we'll return to that another time.
There's kind of a shelf in there that was an old clearing area.
On the north side, for this part, here we've got, we contain the existing addition comes into this existing kind of depression area here. The way we graded down to, there's a proposed detention basin here, so we wanted to get everything into this basin that we could. We're discharging directly in here with the storm scepter into the pond here, doesn't exceed the existing discharge to the pond. We're also providing infiltration in this basin up at the top, pre-treating it with deep soft catch basins along with the areas here.
Okay.
The other side of the north, we're doing, you can see where this area, we're directing to the loop here, to a pond in the back with infiltration. In the front, we couldn't quite get the area to come in, so we're coming from the road here with a CDS. There's less area coming into this area here, so the net discharges are met in this area to come directly into the outside of the wetland discharge.
All right, thank you. All set.
All set? Joyce, any comments?
Kind of overwhelmed. She'll be coming back, right?
Finish with their comments first.
Big project, very detailed so far, so good work.
Maintenance agreement when you guys come back, that's gonna be very important for me. This is a huge impact. I wanna understand how all these stormwater management systems are gonna continue to work after this project's done, cause that's where the impact's gonna happen, is when you guys are gone, and we got roadways and salt and storage and water being collected and discharged into the wetlands eventually. So I want a really good maintenance plan on how this project's gonna be for the future of this town. Other than that,
Sorry, go ahead.
Other than that, it's off to a good start. I mean, it's just a really sensitive area. There's a lot of wetlands, there's a lot of impact, so make me feel good about how it's gonna be when it's all done.
Along that line, in the package that was given to me, I don't think I got the stormwater report. Now, I don't need like the calcs, but I would at least like I want two things. I want the narrative and the O&M plan, because the O&M plan always goes in as a special condition, an in perpetuity special condition.
Zach, any comments?
No, I'm just gonna agree with Mike. I wanna see more of like how the stormwater is going to be treated.
Nicole? Anybody from the audience?
Well, you should have bound stormwater reports delivered to them.
I'm just gonna ask you to state your name and address.
Sandy Loomis, Enchanted Passage, 145 Armsby. One of the questions I had is the wildlife. When this project starts, right now we know there's a lot of deer, woodchucks, fisher cats, turkeys in that area on the north side behind our house. And what happens when they start disturbing that area? We have children outside, in the yard all the time. And I'm concerned of what kind of support do we get for safety?
Can you explain about, what do you mean by support for safety?
In other words, I know you're starting a project on the south side, and that doesn't impact us as much. But when they start disturbing forest land, I don't know how much of a buffer or trees and stuff where these animals all live will disappear. Is that gonna force them into the yard when the kids are playing? I see the woodchucks all the time running around. I've had people tell me about the fisher cats in there. That scares me if they start coming out of the woods. So I'm not sure, from the town perspective, what do you do when the migration of animals starts?
Yeah. How you doing?
Good, nice to see you.
I don't know if I got back to you, but we did create a little trail here that gets over to your house, so the trail actually gets to the bookstore.
Okay.
As we discussed at our meeting. The beauty of this plan, I think, is opposed to this whole side of the property near 146 is in a business zone. So it's zoned for office and hotel, which again, if you did that, you're gonna have a bigger building and a big parking lot. So we have neither of those, so I think this is the most reasonable use for the particular property. But when areas like this in the back behind you get cleared for construction, the beauty is we have, 50 total acres that are gonna remain untouched on the property out of 57. So now the wildlife actually has a place to go, and the corridor that goes from this side all the way to the north through the site stays in place. So we're not breaking that up and chopping it into a bunch of little pieces. So I think that's the beauty of this use.
Yeah, and I guess that was my concern of how much clearing
Yep.
actually happens for the project.
Anybody else?
Need a motion? Motion, can we continue with
Now,
both?
you're gonna need two motions, one for each one.
So do them separately.
I'm gonna make a motion to continue 142 Armsby Road to,
So August 7th is our next meeting, and your planning board is like 2 days before that.
Yep.
Do you wanna go to August 7th or August 21st?
August 7th, because I'm not sure we're gonna have any too much. I've been trying to get a hold of Matt at the highway department to go through some tree clearing work with him as well out the street, so.
So August
but
7th at
If we can try and hold
7:45.
that. 7:45?
and then 141, make a motion to continue 141 Armsby Road to August 7th at 7:46. So we can do it together.
Yeah.
Did we have a second on the first one?
I'll second.
You second both of them?
Yeah.
All in favor on both?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Night.
Zach
Brian,
seconded both.
Get in touch with me so we can do a sidewalk together.
Yeah, once we get something staged.
Yeah, and if, realistically too, speaking, if you would take care of that culvert issue, I think it would mean a lot to the town.
Yeah,
And it
yeah, I
would-
don't see why not. If we're gonna remove the
There'd be a lot of
pavement after
goodwill
you were
there.
done. we might as well
In my
remove
opinion,
the
that's
facade
a
and then
big
we'll set.
mitigation
Yeah,
technique.
I think it would.
I have the plan that was created by Glenn's office, and I got that from Matt, so I know exactly what you're trying to do, so.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Okay.
Did you all want these back?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll just put them in file.
All right,
I never see what time it is.
8 o'clock.
You're welcome. And I will follow up with you once we get something.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the chapter and verse
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
biblical level analysis.
I know he's been standing back there for an hour, it's just different lines, he's probably gonna take a second.
Yeah, where is it? Board business?
Yeah. Just 'cause it's hard. I did the site visit, it was impeccable.
Which one? Century Farm?
Yeah. So I'm sitting back.
Do you wanna sneak in this certificate of compliance real quick?
What is your certificate of compliance?
Is Mr. Danello here?
Matt. He's right there.
Matt Danello?
Yeah.
Come on up, we're gonna sneak you in real quick.
Unless you wanna sit in the heat.
What is that for?
This is 65 Century Farm Road. Mike McGovern did the site visit. Is it okay to remove the erosion control? I actually personally am familiar with that site, and it's, it looks very stable to me. What did
Well,
you?
my only, it's impeccable, it's
Yeah.
beautiful, like the plantings, everything's I mean, it was A+.
Okay.
My only question, I asked Wanda, cause I was new to site visits, is the hay bales and erosion
They don't
control
use hay
are all
bales.
still there?
Straw wattles.
Straw wattles. And I just find it odd that you ask somebody to close out a certificate of compliance and then go do work
We-
after we.
We should, anything that doesn't degrade.
It's just for the future, it's nothing to do with this
Right,
particular
we
project.
should have them removed, I agree with you.
So the second one I did, they were all removed, everything was stable in it. Nothing reflected, absolutely issue the order, certificate of compliance tonight, but
Okay.
I think in the future, we should ask that they just finish their project. Poor guy's gotta go back and deal with all this now, and his yard's beautiful.
I thought you had to leave it.
No,
It's supposed to,
You-
but
You're
yeah.
supposed to, so what I'm saying is.
Nothing with your
Geez, when
project.
you were doing your, once the grass grew, you could've pulled it up and got it all out of there.
I didn't wanna touch it and then have to come back,
Like you said, A+, A+ for sure.
Does anybody have any comments on this?
Make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 65 Century Farm Road.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Do we
you.
have a letter?
We had a letter, right?
Yeah, we have a letter on that, right?
Yeah, there was an as-built plan that was.
Oh, yeah, we got an
impeccable.
as-built, we're good, yeah.
Have a great night.
Impeccable.
Thank you.
65, what year was that?
Can we have that, want us to sign?
So now you can clean up all your stuff
Who
if
made
you
the
want.
motion? Because you're going too fast, I can't write fast.
Bill made the motion. Mike seconded.
There's two of them, there's two NOIs for that, one from 2012 and one from 2016.
Trying to get this done.
It's the 16.
So 16, can I take a look at something real quick?
That was the one where they were gonna put a bunch of houses in and then they didn't, and they
Yep.
built the one house
Here's the letter.
down on, Century Farm Road.
Yes.
Right, well, I wanted to make sure there aren't any,
Look at this as-built plan.
in perpetuity conditions that need to be put into
Doesn't
the
get better.
certificate of
Looks
compliance
great.
that you need to vote on.
Like that, if everybody came in here with an as-built plan that looked like this engineer is A+.
Sign the
And the town's
certificate.
lucky
And there are not.
See why
So
you're
you're all
at it.
set.
Yep.
She's the town's engineer now.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Is it Margaret?
Yeah.
Chris, you wanna sign this thing?
Mr. Chairman.
Sign that. Yes, sir.
Ready? On certificates of compliance.
Yep.
Sometimes there are in perpetuity conditions
Okay,
that are usually in the special conditions section.
okay.
So when voting on a certificate of compliance, please have me go back to the special conditions to see if there are any ongoing in perpetuity conditions, because those have to be voted on.
They wouldn't already just be written in that?
No, well, when I draft the certificate of compliance, I put in those in perpetuity conditions.
Okay.
And they should really be stated in the public hearing out
Okay.
loud. That's all.
Understand.
Thank you.
All right, 125 Singletary Ave?
Oh, did I give you the,
Yep.
I gave you the thing, right?
Yep.
Continued. You can go forward.
Make a motion to waive the reading of 125 Singletary Ave.
I'll second.
All in favor?
John Maderas, Andrew Survey here on behalf of Gianni Romeo. We have to ask for a continuance on this one. Just have it with vacations and everything that came up, we just requested a continuance. It was just, the common driveway was just approved by the planning board. I think it was last night, so there is an appeal period, 21 days. So if we could come back August 7th, we.
Understandable. The only thing I'm gonna ask you is if you could please get us any plans you do 2 weeks before the meeting.
We will do.
Okay, 'cause we really need Brandon to look it over before we.
Did you get my emails with all the comments and memos?
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
good.
I was out on vacation for a week and then came back and then the planning board.
I know how it is.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, August 7th at,
Wait a minute, what are we doing?
Continuing.
Hold on. So you continue August 7th at, 7:55.
7:50.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
8-7 at
I'm
7:55,
sorry,
is
who
it?
did the, yeah, who did the second?
Mike, did you second that? Yeah.
Mike
you
seconded.
made the motion.
I made it.
Yeah.
Did
No,
I
Dave.
get that part?
I stopped by the site, it was all almost stable too. He was out in the front yard right after the meeting and I couldn't help myself but to say, hey, get back.
gonna take us a minute to catch back up here.
No problem, I'll just be ready for you when you're ready.
Excellent.
Is there a DEP number?
Do you have a DEP number yet, sir, on this?
I do, as of
Uh,
5:45 today.
Yeah, tell me about it. I got it.
You got it?
And what is it?
I-
0900.
Yep.
2900?
0900.
It's 303 dash what?
0900.
Oh, 0900. You hit it.
Make a motion to waive the reading of 91 Burbank Road.
Second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, just waiting on my clipboard, but, just 1 minute.
Get the clipboard one.
Which one we on, 91?
Yeah, 91 Burbank Road, Sibley. Okay, excellent. Okay.
Goes around here with the board.
All right, we look good. What does this mean?
That they were gonna, they had to do stuff with the state.
Okay, so it's all set.
Yeah.
Okay. NA. All right. We're good. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's all yours.
Thank you. I'm Chad Cox with GZA here on behalf of the managers of Sibley Reservoir, and we're back to talk about the emergency breaching of the Sibley Reservoir Dam. So the project is continuing to work under the DEP's emergency certification, and what we would like to do is describe to you some of the changes that we've made to the design, which are hopefully bringing the project better into compliance with what people want, and what we would like to do then is to get an order of conditions so that we can wrap this up and get the site stabilized in a way that's gonna be good for the ecology and good for the public safety. So, as you'll recall, the issue was that the outlet pipe collapsed, the pond started to fill. We had a meeting at the site, dam safety was there, DEP was there. Everybody agreed that the issue was an emergency situation and needed to be addressed. We asked for and received a emergency certification from the commission. We then worked with dam safety to develop an appropriate design, which they provided an approval for under a Chapter 253 permit. Work began, we were gonna exceed the 30-day emergency certification, so we got an extension from DEP. What we have are our plans, and you've seen this before, we put these together very quickly. This is the site, and what I would like to draw your attention to that is different from the last time I was in front of the commission is that we have, in conjunction with the downstream abutter and working with dam safety, have modified the design slightly, which we've provided some modified plans to the commission. I'd like to ask that we do some further modification to this just slightly, because in the intervening time, we've kind of rethought it a little bit. But the primary modification is that the original design had an open channel where the stream was passing through. And so we had a 30-foot wide breach and an open channel that was about 4 foot wide at the top where the normal flows were gonna pass through. There was concern that the normal flow open channel, even though it was relatively narrow, was still had too much capacity and that flows would more frequently overwhelm the downstream culvert on Burbank Road. And so the question was asked of us, can we do anything to throttle that flow back? So we looked at putting in a culvert rather than the open channel and put in a small culvert section that would act as a throttle to the flow and essentially help the reservoir continue, the former reservoir continue to provide some detention effects to mitigate flow down to the downstream culvert and the downstream properties. So we worked with dam safety on that. We asked them, is that acceptable to you? Can we put in this this culvert? They said, okay, so long as the dam continues to not be a dam when you're done with the project. And we said, okay, we think we can do that. We had a 30-foot wide breach section above the top of the channel. We needed to widen that to 50 foot now. So that allows us to, because we've lost capacity by substituting the culvert for the channel, we had to gain additional capacity up at the top on the breach channel itself. So we raised the top of the breach channel a little bit to gain a little more storage upstream in the impoundment, but we widened the breach channel so that when and if the breach channel ultimately does overtop, we've got more width to act as a weir to let water pass downstream, and we still stay below that 5 foot, the 6 foot threshold that dam safety wants. They don't want water during the 100-year flow being any higher than 6 foot above the downstream-most toe of the former embankment. So we worked with them, provided them with some calculations. They came back and further asked, what if your culvert clogs up? What happens if some kids jam a rock in there or something? What'll happen then? So we did our calculations and determined that with our 50-foot wide breach channel, and by slightly modifying the top elevation of the breach channel, we could demonstrate that we would still be under the 6 foot depth even if the culvert were completely blocked. So what we have proposed on the plans that we provided you is what I've described, a modification to the design wherein we widen the breach channel to 50 foot and we have a section of culvert in the channel. Now what I would like to further propose is that since having come up with this design and then going out and looking at the site with the managers, it occurred to us that this short little piece of culvert with the breach channels to either side may still, there's a potential for people to fall into this narrow channel. There might be a hazard there, and it may just be simpler and more constructible to just have the culvert go the entire length of the channel, rather than have an open channel, a stubby little culvert, and an open channel again. So what we would like to modify this design tonight is with just the culvert the entire length of the channel. So it would be roughly, I think, 45-ish feet. And that's the proposal. The work that's being done under the emergency section, we've got the breach channel widened to about 50 foot now. The normal channel is their open channel currently, and we wanted to come to you first to talk about putting the culvert in before we took that final step.
Brendan?
This is the first time I have concerns.
Okay.
And it's completely from a wetlands point of view, not the public safety point of view. As of this point, I've been standing back and letting the public safety concerns take precedence,
Sure.
right? And I was liking the project too because it opened up the channel and is now going to create a continuous stretch for aquatic life and fish to go probably in places they haven't been able to go in a very long time.
Right.
And now you're trying to mess all that up.
So in order to mitigate those concerns, what we have proposed to do is that this 24-inch culvert, we'd like to sit it 6 inches deep, the invert 6 inches deeper than what we want to set the stream bottom at. Provide a sill at the downstream end of just stone, and then sluice sediment into the channel, into the culvert. So we've got 6 inches deep of sediment already sort of preset into the culvert. So there's a little bit more of a
it's an
natural
embedded
channel.
four-sided culvert.
It's a round culvert, but yes, embedded.
But this is also very long, so how are you gonna get material into the middle?
So we'll have to set it in sections, set a section, set the downstream sill, sluice the material in, then set the next section, sluice the
And
material in.
how are you gonna size the diameter of stone when you get the first big flush and everything goes flying downstream, and the material in the culvert ends up downstream, and then now you can't get it back in?
Yeah, I think the hope was that the sill at the downstream end would stabilize that material.
Okay. Can you explain the sill?
Just, literally just an embedded rock, that we would set across the downstream discharge end of the culvert that would create a physical barrier to lock the sediment in.
Okay. You think that's gonna be effective?
I think it should be. The flows are relatively low most of the time. It's not, we don't have a huge slope on the culvert, so, I mean, we believe this is a reasonable approach.
What's the openness ratio with the, well, you know, it's not a crossing, so never mind. 2 feet?
24
Okay.
inch, yeah.
I don't wanna spend the Danco's money, you know, anymore than I have to. I think 2 feet is plenty of room for a fish to go up and down. So if you're doing it like you're proposing and you're gonna embed it and do it like as if it was a perennial stream crossing, then I think that's the best alternative. Okay.
Joyce?
Excuse me. I have 3 36s under my driveway. So I was surprised that it was as small as 24. I also am thinking about how dark it's gonna be in there, and I thought one of the things is, you know, stuff doesn't like to go into where it's dark.
Well, we know that the frogs and the salamanders and the small stuff, you know, small mammals don't like that, but they'll be able to go along the sides. Will the fish be as affected? I really don't know, but I'm not overly concerned about it either. I mean, this is still, you say this is still a public safety concern?
And, you know, we'd originally designed an open channel just exactly on the basis of what you're talking about, because it seemed to us to be a more natural approach. But the trade-off is the downstream flows, and one of the things that the commission
Right,
asked us
right,
to do was, so
It's
this
a little-
is.
could be a little too flashy, and that crossing is very, very low. So I get it. And what was the rationale for getting rid of the boulder line channel again?
I think just so that we didn't have this kind of very narrow, once we've got a culvert in there, it's gonna be possible for people, even though it's private property, to sort of be walking up and down and across that slope, and there was a little concern about folks just kind of flopping over into this channel, which was gonna be 3.5 foot deep and pretty narrow and boulder lined, so.
Almost seems like an inverse relationship here, because if it's not, if the culvert isn't as long, there might be more of opportunity for people to fall into the, like, say, the up gradient boulder channel and then go through the pipe, but the pipe's also shorter. So now with a longer pipe, perhaps it's harder to get in there, but once you're in there, it's a lot longer.
Yeah, it's true, but they would have to get in through the upstream intake, and I think that's not gonna be inviting, because it's gonna be right there in the, I think we're gonna have.
It's gonna be small to get through
Yeah,
24
it's gonna be pretty wet.
So the concern is really people falling into it on the up gradient side where they could get washed into the.
Well, and even just falling in and just busting a knee, you know, falling into it.
I mean, natural streams go through gorges like that all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Could there be a compromise where you just do the up gradient side, not the down gradient side? Because if you fall into the down gradient side, you're just gonna get washed into the woods as opposed into the culvert. Just thinking out loud. I don't know if the commission agrees, just thinking out loud.
Bill?
I mean, either way is not much of a alternative, I don't think.
Mike?
I don't know. It's a pretty complicated thing that somebody's trying to make look easy. I don't know how well that's gonna work. I'm not trying to complicate things.
Well, yeah, I understand.
I'm just
you know.
starting to think in your head, so in the spring, when you get your maximum volumes, you got this tiny little pipe. It's designed to fail at 6 feet. So when we get heavy rains, you're still gonna get the floods that go down. Like, I don't know what this is really gonna accomplish is my question.
So I think what it will accomplish is that it will reduce the frequency at which the downstream Burbank Road culvert sees additional flow. You're right, I mean, we get a 25-year storm, a 50-year storm.
It's all
gonna come
going
up and
down.
over
It's all
and-
gone, right down there.
Yeah, so now, the bridge channel itself, we are stabilizing, so the upstream and the downstream, limits will have riprap stabilization, and then across the top, which is gonna be relatively flat, we're gonna use this, turf reinforcing mat, which is a kind of it's not a geotextile, but it's a kind of a fabric material that's placed over loam and seed and allows for erosion resistance against higher velocity flows. So the breach channel should survive a 100-year flood, no problem, but it's not gonna slow the water down.
So that's my only comment, is you're breaching a dam. We're still breaching the dam. We're adding some pipe at the bottom. It looks like as spring turns into summer, it'll hold back some of the water, but for most of the spring, this is gonna flow at a rate much different than what we've seen prior to the breach.
I think maybe not for most of the spring, but there will be occasions when it will. I think we've
So
got
what
a
will be,
lot
so
of
some of the
volume upstream.
concerns from some of the abutters at the very beginning is what if, when this is done, and there's an issue?
Yeah.
I'm not an engineer, I like the idea of keeping it simple. I know this is like I said, not looking to complicate it. I just think we should understand what the outcome will be when this is done.
Yeah.
It's similar to what I just said to the last guy. So when the project's all done and the construction's and everybody's gone and it doesn't work, there's nothing you can do. I mean, I just would hate to see downstream of this flooded, that's all.
I understand, and
And that's been the only concern of breaching this dam that I've heard from day one, not anything other than how's the least expensive, best way we can all accomplish to not have any more issues with the dam, and I just hope that we're thinking it out.
yeah,
That's
no,
all.
and that's why we've gone this direction to adding this new feature since the previous design.
Zach? I just had a question. The pipe, what is it actually going to be made out of?
So we're proposing to use a double-walled corrugated HDPE pipe that was smooth on the inside and then the corrugation on the outside, and that would just be soil bedded into the channel that we've already dug.
Nicole?
Wouldn't a corrugated, do they make a corrugated, so the sediment, one of the concerns Brandon had is how the sediment was gonna stay in the pipe. So if you say smooth, what I understand is a rock or a cement head wall at the height that you were saying,
Yeah.
and I understand that will help hold sediment back, but, so you got a long pipe with a smooth surface that the water's hitting right at one end with no protection. Granted, I agree that as it goes down the pipe, the sediment won't go above that wall, but do we lose sediment at the beginning of the pipe? You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Are we better off with a pipe that has some ribs to it on the bottom? I don't know if there's such a thing, I'm not.
We
But
can look
that
into
helps
that,
hold
yeah.
the sediment in at the bottom, the head wall, so in addition to the head wall, you have ripples in the bottom that help keep the sediment from washing at the beginning. Like I said, I understand the simplicity of it all, it just, and I am the biggest one that wish that construction could be this simple sometimes, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, but we just wanna make sure when we're done, cause just being in construction, there's nothing more frustrating than spending all this money and still have a problem.
Yes, sir.
Right? So I mean, I guess my only things that I'm saying is let's just make sure we get it right the first time. And that we don't be faced with a problem that the owners are still responsible for because we didn't do it right the first time and now we've got a problem.
Right.
Cause I don't know if that problem goes back to where it stems from, like, is there liability on the poor people that own this dam that if we go and do all this work and it doesn't work and we're washing sediment and it's flooding downstream and that's been the only thoughts that I would have to say to add to this. It's just, I know we're all trying to get there. And I see it, and like I said, sometimes small little details make all the difference in the world.
Sure.
And I think Brandon's concern about sediment coming out of the pipe is a good one. And then the second thing is just at the top of the pipe where we have the 50-foot opening, how is that gonna work in these giant storms in the spring when it's full to that point? 'Cause I'm sure it's gonna get there. You know, when you get some of those heavy rains, a 24-inch pipe it's designed to fill up and hold back But it's almost like, are we making more of a problem by doing that because you're holding back some, and then all of a sudden the pond's right there, and you go up and over, and you get a heavy flood, and it's creating a lot of downstream water.
Yeah, hold on, Mike, I'm confused now. You're talking about pipes, and then we're talking about 24-inch embedded culverts.
Well, no, the pipe has everything, so they're saying that the way they're allowed to do this is by not retaining the water higher than 6 feet, which gives it a definition of not a dam. So we're given the sense that we're gonna be stopping water from going downstream, but we're really not. Because in the spring, at your highest flow rates, it's gonna fill right up to that point, and it's gonna go over because it's not a dam anymore, so it's not gonna really retain anything. And I think that your peak flows are still gonna be there. We're still gonna see water greater than what we've seen prior to this breach. That, not trying to play engineer, just to make common sense.
You're absolutely right about that. No, you're absolutely right.
So, once again, just to be mindful for what's gonna happen after this repair. That's all my concern is.
I'm just gonna add my quick 2 cents to this. As a parent of an adventurous child, 24-inch pipe does not work for me. That actually scares me.
Yeah.
I think that you should look into it, either an open top culvert, like a U shape, or go up a size. 36 would be much safer. 24 inches.
Well, I have so what if there isn't a pipe and then it's a V, and that we're not trying to ever hold back any water, and we're trying to just, as the flow creates, it gets, once again, I don't wanna be engineer,
Yeah,
but is the
that's
pipe the
just-
right answer? That's what maybe it made some people feel good that we threw a pipe and we think that we're holding back some water, but is that what we're really doing? Are we better off with your original plan of it being V'd all the way down, no pipe? Cause Brandon, your first comment was, well, the pipe just was a game changer for you.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to take this all in of what I've heard and listened to, and
Yeah, it's changed
and the
the
goal
rubric.
of this is when we breach the dam is to not change how much water goes downstream, so we don't have issues. And that I can't tell you how to do it.
Any-
That's where
Anybody from the audience? Any comments from the audience?
You know, I
Your
think
name
that,
and, name and address, sir?
James Marin, 80 Burbank Road. It's a math exercise, and unfortunately, the reality is there is no perfect, it's an A plus B equals C in terms of flow, and there is no we can't recreate the existing condition. It's unrealistic, right? And Mike, you're 100% right. When you look at the engineering flow data that comes from the reservoir, there's water that flows through there that is significant.
To back my point, we can make a mistake with water flow calculations. That's why God invented lawyers. We can't take a chance at somebody getting hurt in a 24-inch pipe. I just don't see that working.
So the issue
on a high
is,
flow,
you
on a
know,
high
the
flow,
issue-
potential high flow.
If you look at the prior information that was submitted in a 2-year event, there's issues all over the place.
Even a 2-year event.
2-year event with the open cut. You've got flow coming through there at what, 22, 25 in a 2-year event?
Something along those lines,
Cubic feet
CFS.
of- You know, I mean, there's real water that comes through there, which is about the equivalent of the discharge from a 2-foot diameter pipe, right? So by impounding water a little bit, it takes that 2 years and kind of makes it a 10-year event before.
Not quite a 10, but it does help. Yeah,
So
that'd
it
be.
dampens it dampens the frequency that you're gonna have downstream issues.
Right.
So the question is, do you let it rip? In which case, in a 5-year event, you could be dealing with 32, right? 32, 35, you know, huge quantities of water coming through there. So it's, do you wanna get hit in the head with the hammer once every 10 years or once every year? There is no perfect.
No, that sounds better.
Office of Dam Safety won't let you recreate the existing
Right.
condition.
So this will help with the smaller storms, but the bigger ones, unfortunately.
It is what
But
it is,
instead
right?
of getting hammered once a year, you get hammered once every 10 years. That helps me to understand what we're trying to do.
Yes.
That was well said. Just don't wanna have more of a problem.
Yeah. No, it's an imperfect, there is no, and Chad and his firm and the Dankos and have exhaustively.
But what about Andy's concern? Just picture the water being up, you got a pipe underneath that's discharging water, that's like, is it sucking it? Like what?
there anything you could do to somewhat block the pipe and still allow stuff through, but not?
What do you do with the mouth of the pipe? I think
Would a
that's
trash
Andy's.
rack would be
Well, that's what I'm
acceptable,
wondering.
would that be a?
Well, let me ask
If you,
this.
yeah, if you could make it safe,
So
I'd
if
be
the
fine with
water's
it.
up higher,
24 inches just
and
to
the
me.
pipe's down
Understand.
low,
Yeah.
and there's that kind of a suction to it.
But is the trash rack gonna get filled with crap and?
Well, that's
create
one
a
of the
dam?
concerns,
I
is
think it
that-
will.
You're gonna have
That
to
because of the
condition that
reeds
it's maintained
that
then.
come down, I
Yeah.
think that's.
That is gonna be a
We,
big
I don't wanna
problem.
cost
Yeah.
anybody any more money.
I
It's
don't
just,
either.
As a parent, it,
36, well,
You shouldn't
is there a
have a kid
problem
over
with a
there.
36-inch?
my kid's a Sutton kid, he's out in the woods
Culvert.
all the time. He comes home when the
The-
streetlights go down.
It would reduce, it would
Well,
reduce
that's the way it should be.
the attenuation that we were trying to get. It would, I mean, it would work, it just would, we would just get less of the attenuation. So now, you know, we would have
The
just.
bigger the pipe, that more the flooding you're
Right,
gonna get.
exactly.
Right, no,
Exactly.
I got you.
I mean, I don't, yeah.
Ma'am,
I just had a question.
just your name and address, I'm sorry.
Judith Danko. I live in Holden.
Okay.
So are you saying you prefer the 12-foot pipe for safety considerations
I would-
instead of the 45 length?
No, he's talking about diameter.
The diameter of the
Oh,
pipe.
I know, but
I would prefer anything except a 2-foot
Could you-
open pipe.
Could you do 2 smaller pipes?
That's what they were talking about previously.
No, they were saying keep the top open.
Oh.
Yeah, there was no pipes before.
Can't
Pipe-
you
the
just
pipes
run-
are new.
Can't you run 2 12-foot pipes?
12-inch pipes?
12-inch pipes, not 12-foot.
It's not gonna have the same.
Yeah, I don't know, there is a
Doesn't equal
calculation
all that
difference,
family.
that Bob Duff knows it, there was, we went through that with the driveway crossing. That's my concern.
So
Well, let's leave it like that. I mean, like you said, none of us are engineers. Let's just talk out some concerns.
But I think they
I think
wanna.
this is the less of all the evils. They've been working on it for months now. They're trying to make everybody happy and not be expensive, and that's what
Right.
we all want to, and it fixed. I just asked those few questions, and I guess if you guys are continue owning it, I think Andy does have, I think you should look at and understand the safety of kids not going through that pipe, because if someone ever fell in.
No, go through it,
And
I'd
they
probably
can
go through it, I just don't wanna get halfway in and have a drowning, you know, that's, stuff gets stuck in
Well, that's what I'm
pipes.
thinking, that's what I'm saying, so if you got this mouth of a dam, and you got this pipe down here, and they're gonna let it breach at 6
Right.
feet, and now the water's up here, and what kind of current does that make going through that pipe?
Well, if it's a normal year, nothing, but if you get a heavy rainfall.
Right,
You
the
have a
kids are
spring
playing
like
on the
we had
bank, and then
this
somebody
year.
falls in,
Right.
and that pipe sucks them and spits them out the other side.
Are you
Go for
opposed
a
to it, what do you
50
call the
foot-
trash thing?
I'm
I
not,
just think the
I'm
end
not
of that
opposed
pipe
to it, but it would
So
have to be.
could we do a very wide trash, I mean, like literally 2 bars?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
typically
Just
a.
to stop a kid from going.
Yeah.
It would just have to have some sort of maintenance cleaned out in the spring.
Just you
or
can't let
something.
it get blocked up.
Right, that's all, I'd be happy with that. Brandon?
Sounds to me that public safety is still the utmost importance here, and I was thinking about fisheries and stream continuity here, but I'm backing off on that because it's through the talking tonight, it still sounds like a public safety issue, and the overtopping of Burbank Road is still the prime issue here, so I'm gonna go with whatever the best recommendation is to get this done.
There is no math that works, right? I mean, that's become, and Chad's done a great job of running for.
So it comes down to that legal terminology, best practicable, and that's what I asked you to do.
So do you wanna-
Try to think about public safety and the overtopping, the flow. Do whatever you can
Bars, safety.
for stream continuity.
Trash bars or whatever.
Be happy.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm ready.
Close.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 91 Burbank Road, Sibley Reservoir Dam, as proposed with the addition of a couple pieces of bar or something to prevent a child or person from going in the pipe.
The longer culvert and the trash racks to.
Trash racks, if
Yeah.
you wanna call it that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And only
Bars,
two,
bar rack.
just,
2 bars, right, understood.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you to the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Danko, for all your work.
Yeah, sorry, we're not trying to make it hard on you, promise.
So the,
It's a good thing I like to work.
so the 7/10/2019 is gonna be your final revision?
That's correct. Would you like us to send you a revised set to reflect what the commission has?
I would love that.
Yeah,
We can do
send
that.
two.
Okay, so.
Two, okay.
Yeah, you can send them to the office.
And
Okay,
a digital copy would be great.
We'll do
Order
that.
of
Thank you.
conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Voted on was today, so it's, what is today's date?
Seventeenth.
17. 7, 17, 19, trash bars. 2.
Revised
Lemonade out of lemons.
Guys, just don't hang any balloon at the end of that. All I can think of is it.
So
And you
we
know
can-
what the crazy thing about that is? I live on the opposite side of town. It would be my kid that got stuck in that.
Right.
I used to
play
climb
there
through
as
the
a kid,
pipe.
that's where I grew up.
Everybody did.
Yeah.
Alright, so we're good here, right?
Hey, I used
We
to
gotta
play
sign the next
manhunt
one.
on conveyor
Okay.
So we
belts
can't sign
and
the
a rock
plan, cause
crusher
he's
at a
gonna
local.
send in a revised
Shoot
plan.
signs up
Yeah.
Secretary Ave.
Pipeline pipes when they're
Kill
building
zone.
up.
Oh, I know. It is a kill zone. They broke the dam in one day.
I,
It was bad.
you know what I say when I drive by, only the state, right?
Is it on the back?
Andy, only the state.
Yeah, when you send me the plan, I'll bring it to the next meeting.
Overall, though, they've been pretty,
Okay.
I mean, I go by there a couple times a day, and I thought they've been all right.
You should see the downstream effect.
Oh, is it? What, sediment and all in that cold?
Can't get the cold.
Why, it's plume?
It's all seeded. They say it's a foot shallower at the mouth. They went like this with an excavator.
You just let it
What do you
rip.
say?
They
Yeah.
went over their erosion controls. The Lake Association's gonna be
Just maybe-
Oh, that's a new one, I'm sorry.
Make a motion to waive the reading of 100 Armsby Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright, we need anything on this one?
John,
Just waiting on the DEP number, right?
we don't
Yep.
have to do that part.
Do you have a DEP on this?
It says
We
right
do.
here,
Yeah.
Where is, what is it?
898.
Just received it last Friday.
303.
A while, huh?
089.
Took a while.
You were here 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on the phone for 45 minutes. There's a new guy, Adam.
Yeah, Rick Weir, yeah.
That
Yeah.
was going on.
He's really engaging.
He is engaging.
Mm-hmm.
John Maderas, Andrews Survey, here on behalf of Scott Trainer, 100 Armsby Road, Sutton, Massachusetts. Single-family home, Title V approved, the Title V approved septic system, already been approved by the Board of Health. We're addressing a few of the comments from the last meeting. Since that we have obtained the DEP number, there were a few other things as far as the connection showing the driveway. So it is continuous with this right here. I believe we've addressed all their concerns, comments. There was one, Brandon, I do have I amended page 1 of the notice of intent.
You can give that to Wanda, and she'll
Okay.
stamp it in, and make sure you send one to Adam at DEP.
Yes, and what we did was, I just put the other assessor's map and number on there, because both names are on there.
So, there's another question with this, is this someone else's property, and do you have permission to do this to begin with?
Yes, right there.
Okay.
So, from the previous filings, we were able to keep it further away. We do have a separation from the wetland of 34 feet, the closest point on the turn for the driveway. We have our riprap swale in, take care of any sediment coming off the driveway.
So this is a new revision. What's the?
Revision, which I sent you, I think it was last week. It was just this insert here, that was what DEP was looking for, and.
So what's your most
driveway
recent
hasn't
revision
changed.
date?
Revision date is 7/11.
Okay.
So the driveway's on Burnap again, right?
Armsby.
No.
It is on Armsby?
It's still on
Off
Armsby.
Okay.
yes. So,
Just looking at the map up there.
Here's Armsby.
Okay.
And that's where it's,
That's a big long one
that's where it's
for
coming.
Madison.
Originally, we had it going over here.
Yeah, right.
First, we had it over here.
Right.
Then
Back
we
there.
went over here, and then
Okay.
we came over here.
All right, so it's, that Armsby Road address is correct, again?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Because we flip-flopped, didn't we go?
Yes.
Okay.
Six
Few
Burn
times.
Ave,
Okay,
800
all right.
Armsby,
And I think
yes.
So what I suggest, John, is for the old NOI that you're not gonna use anymore, I presume?
Right.
Right, so what I recommend is submitting a certificate of compliance request. Commission can say,
No work to.
no work was ever started, and just close it, and that way it won't be a cloud on your deed. Cause
Okay.
when it comes time to do a certificate of compliance on this one, you're also gonna have to look at that first notice of intent.
Right, and I believe there was two of them, because we had,
I thought it was just a modification
yeah,
of the first.
Burn Ave, oh, that was a modification, okay, yes. No,
Right,
you're
so it's
correct.
really
You're correct.
only one other permit, so you really wanna close up that permit, just get it off,
So when
Clear
he
your
goes
plate.
for a mortgage or anything, it's clear.
it's clear, and they won't cloud your deed.
Okay.
And just for the
We'll do
record, the abutting neighbor's allowing work on his property, right?
What?
You're allowing work on your property for this project? What's your name and address, sir?
John McGill,
Okay,
215 McGill Drive in Grafton.
as long as we got it on tape, I'm happy
Yeah,
with that.
John, just submitted a revised application with his name on it.
Perfect. Good. Everybody good?
Please.
Everybody good? Anybody in the audience?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 100 Armsby Road, Scott Trainer, and John McGill.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Say that again, Bill?
An order of conditions for 100 Armsby Road for Scott Trainer and John McGill, just so it's all on record for everyone out there, there's no issues.
And who did the second?
Zach did. Good work, guys, it's a long one.
All right, great.
It's a short one.
Well, they only had to make 100 revisions.
I got room in the new water here.
You guys wanna
Bob?
get going, huh?
Yeah.
How long before they get order of conditions, Brandon? Just 'cause they have been through a
Yes,
long,
sir.
long haul. In your heart, I know you're a busy man.
Might need to drop you off at St. V's, Joyce.
No, don't go there.
It's been over a month.
Jeez, Louise.
I'm better.
Everyone who's going to St. V's isn't getting out.
That rainstorm didn't probably help.
Shouldn't say that on TV.
Yeah, but your mic might be on, you might say something in red.
Do that all the time.
All right.
Okay, sign.
Okay, we don't have a plan to sign?
Do we have a final plan?
Did you submit paper copies of that?
I did, not paper copies, but
Yeah, we need
We
paper.
need paper copies to
copies.
sign?
Can we sign that one?
Yeah, can we
Is that
give us that
stamped?
one?
Sure.
No,
Why not?
I don't think we can, cause she's gotta put it in the file.
She can
Yeah.
stamp
She
it
can
and we
keep
can
it.
sign
She
it.
needs two copies.
Well, he can bring one more, at least we'll have the signed one in the file.
Yeah.
He'll bring one more copy and it's done.
Correct.
That makes
Yeah, I
sense to
can
me.
give the
First thing
second
tomorrow.
one to Brandon.
Well, I can get mine later. That
I
one,
just think if we have a stamp one in the file, we're in
Right, we
good
could always,
shape,
fine.
right?
if
You
he didn't
only-
show back up, we have a,
all
we
you
have a
need is
copy of it.
one.
Right.
I like to
John's gonna
take the
bring us
second
one
one.
tomorrow, I heard him say.
we will bring it tomorrow. Hold on.
That might be
Okay,
easier
yeah.
to not put it
I don't
on
want
that.
you boys, sorry.
Because if you hit the microphone.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, I know, it's awful.
I'll be off the
I
wall
watched
and
that meeting, that 3-hour meeting you guys had last time.
There you go, John.
Painful to watch.
There was more plans going across the microphone.
I know, I wish we could do it a different way, but
We have to sign them, so there's no way around it.
I know. Yeah, you can take
The
these
sheet
back
one?
if you want.
Oh, yep.
Here's this one.
I signed it. Yep.
Pass around the. See that? Title blocks here, there we go. You could be the first one, Tom.
X marks the spot.
Yes, there is 10 days. 10 business days, so it's 2 weeks.
I could surely go for a Miller High.
Anybody can appeal, well, not anybody, but direct abutters and a 10-person or more group from the town.
with prior, what was the word? They had to have participated, which means they had to either spoken up at a meeting or submitted written comments. I don't think there's anybody like that. So you're looking at direct abutters could appeal.
We just got a couple things here. All right, board business. Water runoff issue at 149.
No, minutes.
Thank you very much.
No, oh, I'm sorry.
June sixth, 2019. Minutes.
Make a motion
Wait a minute now, I don't have the 26th done, those need to be tabled.
yeah, so make a motion to table June 26th and make a motion to approve June 6th minutes.
Second and second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye and aye.
All right. Water runoff issue at 149 Putnam Hill Road.
That been resolved?
That we did before,
Okay, it's all set.
and,
Is it resolved, or what was the outcome?
I'm just gonna, cause I go by there a lot, and I
Yeah.
made a point to drive through the parking lot, especially when it rains. It's maybe more of a spring event, cause right now I didn't see any water breach in any of the hay bales. I mean, I didn't go there today in the
Any of the
straw
wattles.
straw wattles.
It's like calling the transfer station the dump.
I mean,
It is the dump.
those are really tough soils. I think the spring, and I think now that it's all stabilized and it's all done, I would hope that next spring it's gonna be a good project.
Okay,
And if it isn't, then, I mean, then it.
next.
Yep.
I called it the landfill in the One Smith Road order of conditions.
Oh, boy.
Well,
All right,
The dump
wetlands,
sounds nicer.
wetland signs issue at 78 Hutchinson Road.
oh, okay, Mr. Judson gave me a call.
You know,
Said that National Grid was prohibiting him from putting up his buffer zone signs in their right-of-way.
the only reason I can believe that is because I looked at a lot to lease in Shrewsbury, and there was a high transmission line that went over it, and they would not let me park a truck under that line. For whatever reason. So,
I absolutely believe Rob Judson.
yeah.
It makes sense anytime I've done any work near gas lines, power lines.
It's their rules usually.
Yeah, no, it is their rules, period, and it makes sense. I mean, if it's a cleared power line, I don't think we need the signs there anyways. I don't think we'd be accomplishing anything, so.
Okay.
Let's,
He just wants to make sure it doesn't cloud anything when he comes in for the COC.
We need it, you want a motion on that or anything?
It wouldn't hurt to put it in the record, so someone can then look back at minutes.
Okay.
If needed, when the COC comes in, which who knows when that could be.
So I'm gonna make a motion on 78 Hutchinson Road to adjust it that signs are not needed in the, is it National Grid easement?
I think it's still under Mass Electric.
Mass Electric, National Grid, whoever electrical company easement.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, no info received for all those, we don't have to go around that. We did the site visit for 65, how about 11 West Sutton Road?
Are you there?
Well, we did 65, so 11 West Sutton Road, Mike, did you get a chance
Oh, I did
to
both,
check
yep,
that?
I did. Outstanding.
Outstanding, looks good?
Outstanding, like totally stabilized, grass growing,
Okay,
lot cleaned up,
What is this for?
certificate of compliance.
yeah.
Oh,
So you're gonna look and see if there's any special conditions?
Thank you.
Yes.
Let me go look. 11, where are you? Okay. 11,
Hey, in the meantime, let's go back to 39 Manchog Road. I went over there and I met with the woman, and I told them they had to get the stuff off the banking. And, so I said, get it done in a month or so and give us a call.
I have something to weigh in on. I didn't get out of my truck, but several days ago, there was 3 30-yard dumpsters in the street. They were all heaping full. There was a crew of guys. I don't know if it came from in the house, outside the house, but it appears that they did a major cleanup there. So if somebody wanted to take a site visit again, I think they
Well,
would see.
she was gonna call me when they had it cleaned up.
I did notice some type of a pretty large operation cleanup going on, which I was happy
Well,
to
it
see.
didn't look like there was that much over the banking, but maybe they found more once they got in there.
There was something going on. There was 3 30-yard dumpsters, and 2 of them were full to the top.
Oh, wow.
So let's hope they cleaned up outside as well
Um,
as the inside.
25 Marsh Road I looked at.
What are you doing with 11 West Sutton Road?
We're waiting for Brandon to make
I'm
sure.
ready.
I thought Marsh
Okay.
Road, we said that was a civil matter.
Yeah,
No?
it is,
The,
but-
the only ongoing condition, this is the one that we have for every single project, is, continue maintenance of all disturbed areas in a manner which assures permanent stabilization and precludes any soil erosion. So it's basically, once the project's done, you have to keep your site stable. That's it.
There was not, they would never, I mean, it's too small of a site, it's 50 feet wide.
It's a standard condition for all sites.
Okay. Make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 11 West Sutton Road, Deborah Pinto.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Once again, did we have a letter requesting it?
Yeah, we must have, right?
And I apologize, I'm assuming if it's on here that we have a
Right.
letter.
There was
and,
an extensive as-built plan that was submitted, I mean, it was
Oh, there
right
was
on the
one.
money.
You'd either need the letter or the as-built, correct?
Here's the,
There's a,
Well,
really, I mean,
when an
we're not
as-built
getting
comes in, there's a letter that goes
Conservation, we
along
got
with
both.
it.
We got both.
And
So-
I checked, like,
So-
it's top
Anybody
notch.
else wanna look at them?
Nope.
hold on,
We have to
here's
sign
the
it.
book board to sign.
Even if it looks good, the procedure is to have that letter
Okay.
at all times.
Yeah, put it all together, you can sign.
Yep. You can sign
Sign
for
it
it.
again, so I
That,
don't lose
you know what that is? That's liability reduction for the commission. It puts it on the engineer, not the engineer's opinion, not so much on the commission's opinion.
All right. Real quick, yeah, 25 Marsh was a civil matter, correct? Or did that go to a
Yes.
different board?
Oh, is that's the one we've been talking about?
That's the one that it had a certificate of compliance a long time ago, and so it is a civil matter,
Okay.
because it has nothing to do with us.
Off the
Okay.
agenda.
Yeah, off the agenda.
Grant Woodward, we haven't heard from.
No, I haven't heard from him. 11 West Sutton sign. Site visits for COC of Manchog Road, Torrey Road, Boat Ramp.
Oh, yeah, I think I know already.
These all old ones we need to do, Wanda? I can do some of them if you get them, if, I
Well,
did.
I'll do the boat dam.
That,
It's
that
right
looks
down the
like,
street
well,
from
do
my
you,
house.
first of all, do you have a letter from an engineer on this? Always need that letter from the engineer.
Brandon, what was the one you had me look at a couple weeks ago?
Okay, this one on,
Oh, yeah.
Did that not make the cut tonight?
the highway
It's not on
department one, they sent me this request a certificate with no book and page number. I don't think it was registered, so I'm gonna have to contact him again and find out. I need the registration number.
Okay.
So we could
So
have
you
them
can't
record
do
it and then we
anything
could
with
sign
that.
off if.
It needs to be recorded,
It needs to be
Is that
recorded.
the boat ramp?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, can I just ask a question? If it's all done, it's compliant, I mean, we let him know he didn't do it correctly.
Still needs a recording number. If it doesn't, if
Oh.
they never recorded it,
There's no proof it was done.
I don't know if we can do a certificate of compliance, because you're gonna have to sign
This is
a
much
thing all
a
over again.
legal exercise as it is a practical exercise.
Who's responsible for recording that one?
The
The,
applicant.
the
Applicant,
applicant,
you just go there, it's easy to do, it costs $100, it takes 5 minutes.
Who,
$75.
who was the
75.
applicant on this one?
Mark Brigham, the highway department, and
Okay.
if he didn't record it, it hasn't been recorded.
Okay.
What year was that? It's gotta be quite a while back.
11/3/10.
2010, so this was a Mark Briggs's special. I don't even have that here in my folders. It's one of those situations, I think that Mark just took care of it himself because it was a town thing.
Right.
So this is what I'm asking, do we need to make the town spend all this money
It's only
in
7
Well,
time?
it's seven,
Yeah,
it's
you
gotta
have
be
to.
for legal, but to be legal.
It has to be.
Oh, yeah, they probably don't charge the town.
Okay, no, that's
Yeah,
different.
we can't charge the town.
Wanda, can you send that to, Matt Stencil and maybe CC Jim Smith on it? It'll probably happen right away.
Right, you need to know if it was registered.
But we don't believe it was recorded.
We don't believe it was, but if they can kick back and say it
Well,
was.
they can go record it at any time.
Yeah, right.
No,
He-
they have to record a signed copy. No one knows where the original is.
Well, the commission can just do like they've done before and just create a new one.
Sign a new one, but I don't have it typed up or nothing.
Alright, so Wanda, if they
We'll
give us
have to
one,
go to the next meeting.
just to not drag this one on, and since it's for the town, if someone wants to give it to me when it's completed, I'm in Worcester all the time, I'd be more than happy to take it in and get it recorded.
Yeah, I could do it too, I'm always up
We
there.
received this from Titan Bond. They did not send me the book and page number, so I was gonna call them tomorrow morning
That's the title
and
company.
find out
Yep. Go
if
for
they,
it.
if it was registered or not.
Okay.
Because I can't find it in the land records,
Okay,
so.
perfect. 50, 52, and 58 Lackey
That's
Dam
what she was
Road.
just talking about.
Okay, this,
That one
no,
is
she was
right
just talking about
here.
Torrey Road Boat Ramp.
That one we received, the information on.
Ty and Bond did that one, so that's the Lackey Dam, right?
No, the This is done by
Wildlife, Fish and Wildlife, yeah.
Restaurant Division of Wildlife. This is the other
Oh, I know,
dam
this is the one that was a couple of years ago.
That's
these
the
all the-
one that I went down there 'cause you were sick and I did the pre-construction meeting.
Right, I remember that.
This was done in
It is hot.
2018. They sent me a copy of the original. So
Yeah, it was-
done in
it was all done.
2018.
It's
It has
down-
a booking page number.
Yep.
I've got it typed up. If you wanna sign it,
Best part of my day was
it's
getting
up to you.
downvoted.
Do we have,
Aaron's property.
do we have a letter from an
Oh, should I?
engineer?
Yeah. Oh, cooled me right off, it's great.
Yeah.
What a beautiful piece of property that is.
That's what makes Sutton Sutton.
Yeah,
That is,
we have a transmittal,
as good as it gets.
Titan bond,
What a lucky to have a guy like that.
certificate. I have
At
the
his own
letter right
expense.
here.
Dan Bottrick was the representative,
That's who I have, yeah.
Be that passionate.
okay, did he write a letter
Takes
Yep.
a lot of time. He's a good guy for the town.
saying that it's in substantial compliance?
I don't know, let me read it. Comes from, it's from him. Yeah, he signed it.
Well,
yeah,
I,
that's
I believe it.
compliance, yeah,
As long as we
background.
have it in the record.
Yeah, I got it right
we're
here.
good.
And I went down there afterwards and it was all done correctly and everything.
So
It
we
looks
have a
very
letter,
nice.
we have an inspection,
Make a motion, issue a certificate.
Do we
of
have any
compliance.
special conditions? Sorry, Bill.
yes, we do.
Sorry, Bill.
So please add, I'll bring it up here, so you can read it. Where is it? Number
Okay, so I'm
27,
going
add
to
this
sign this for 11
as a
outside.
special, as an, in perpetuity
I didn't.
condition.
So make
I
a
didn't
motion to
either.
issue a
bunch of people did.
certificate of compliance for 50, 52, and 58 Lackey Dam Road, wildlife fisheries, including the operations and maintenance plan, section 3.3 of the NOI application narrative shall be strictly followed in perpetuity.
I didn't see that.
I have a motion, I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
27.
Number
What is it?
27 will be an ongoing condition.
All right.
One last thing for you.
Bill, who seconded?
If you're almost done.
Yeah, we get the correspondence and track sheet
Who did the
review.
second on that?
3 of them, pick one.
Yeah, pick
One
one.
that I did, I'll do it.
Okay. You guys are going too fast for me, I can't keep up with all this paper.
We would've been here till midnight. Do you wanna do a track sheet review, or is that it for this evening?
No, don't bother with the track sheets.
So
I
the
didn't
only thing is
count
we have this
them.
WPA account. My understanding is we can use it to maybe buy a iPad or tablet or computer related thing so we can pull things up like the other boards do while we're here. Can that come out of the WPA account?
Even if we got a,
No,
No?
I don't think so.
even if we got a
Well,
inexpensive one,
It might be.
I think it would be beneficial to have as chair and for future chairs.
For what?
If we get into a filing that's been continued 8 times and been presented 6 times, we can look back at some emails.
I think that would fall under the category of office equipment.
Yeah, but what are you talking about? You lost me totally.
You're talking about using money from the wetlands protection account to buy a laptop.
A tablet.
No, just a
For the
tablet.
chair, I think
Yeah,
it's a great
just, we
idea.
just need one for the chair, and
Yeah, we
whoever's
can
chair in
pass
the
it on
future.
if something
Well, it's
came in
here,
by
like you
email.
said, it's here if we need
Right.
information.
Brandon
Load
could
it.
shoot me a picture while we're sitting here that we could all look at instead of squinting our eyes at the screen. We
I
could
see
pass
a
it
lot of
around.
use for it. I think it's a great idea.
Who's gonna load it?
You load it.
Grant,
What do you mean?
He's gonna be responsible, he's gonna set it all up and the next chair's
There's
gonna be
nothing
like,
really to-
wow, this is great.
There's nothing really,
I haven't got a clue.
there's nothing really to load.
Whoa, you
No,
have to get the,
Tammy
you
does
got
the
Wi-Fi
other
yet?
one.
Yeah, we just have to have
We have
something
the
from,
Wi-Fi. We don't?
I don't
You
know.
can have
We
it so it's
to plug
connected to
in.
the email that you have, Wanda, so everything that goes to that town email box goes directly, me and my wife link everything, like, it's
Right.
not that hard to do.
Well, we'll
In
have
today's
to
day and age,
investigate it.
Alright, so can.
my wife's a whiz at it. If you need any help,
Alright,
we can have to.
let's price one out and we'll put it on the next the next agenda.
Sounds good.
Yeah, put
Alright.
it on the next
Thank
agenda,
you. See if we
'cause
can
I have no
Use
idea.
that account.
Make a motion
If we
to
can't
adjourn.
use that account for that, Joyce, I don't know what we're collected fees for.
I said I made a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.